Perez. Wilco makes a run ahead of him. Bergkamp suddenly changed pace through the centre. It's Bergkamp! That's magnificent! The move, and then this, which left Dabby's ass totally stranded.
Hello and welcome to Bergkamp Wonderland. This time exactly 10 long years ago. Me and Gav and FK and Steve and Jeff Arsenal. You remember Jeff Arsenal, don't you? I think some might vaguely remember him. And Steve Lord Hillward and a certain Venezuelan whose name shall not be mentioned because he is. I'm watching Curb Your Enthusiasm at the moment, and if you've watched that, you will know that Venezuelan John has put a fatwa on me, so I cannot. I've mentioned his name. That's it. It's all over. I'm gonna have to write a musical about it now. If you've not watched Curb Your Enthusiasm, you won't get any of that lot. I'm gonna stop waffling and introduce my guest. First of all, bottom left-hand corner, it is Gav, the cheeky. What did we used to call you? Strutter.
And Strutter and Chopsy.
Chopsy. All right, Chopsy. How are you doing, my dear?
I'm good, thank you. How are you? You lovely human, you. I
am tickety-boo, and I've just realised I've messed up the tweet because I forgot to take out the bit where it says we will be live. So it said we are live, and it says we will be live at the same time. So that's absolutely no use at all. Yeah, I'm very good. Still 10 years, still haven't got the hang of this podcast nonsense.
Still blagging it, mate. Still blagging it.
Oh, dear, it's shameful. Right, there you go. I think I got it right this time. So you are all right then, are you?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Just plodding along, mate. I mean, the usual Monday, busy, and yeah, let's get going.
Can't ask much more than that.
No.
Another voice that will be for. I don't know if most people know that FK was one of the original founding members of a Bergkamp Wonderland. He come up with some of the ideas, and he was the one who used to go and hassle the journalists to get. We had John Cross on and Raphael Honigstein. We did a show with him that I didn't record, then we had to do it again. How are you, FK?
I'm good, man. It's so nice to A, hear your voice, and B, hear the intro. And then you talked about the 10-year anniversary, and Steve, may you rest in peace. What a chap he was. What a journey we went on, man. And congratulations. You're keeping going, which is great. So thanks for having me on. And Chris, nice to see you as well.
Nice to see you, mate.
Chris isn't here yet. Don't ruin it for him. And we have the little things that you can add on StreamYard. It's the top right-hand corner. Steve Lord Hillwood is there, the picture. So he'll be here with us in spirit. I did message Jeff Arsenal as well, but he's gone. He's gone rogue. We don't know where he's gone or what he's playing at. FK, tell people what you do now before I go and introduce Chris, because otherwise I will forget.
Well, for a living? Basically, if you want to find me on social media, you can find me on F Carnage. And of course, I have been busy hosting Latte Firm, which is my YouTube thing. And that seems to be going well. So yeah, come and join for some further stupendous Arsenal content. So I appreciate that, Danny. Thank you.
You can't get much more smooth than that. Talking of smooth and his undercarriage, finally, it's the bloke who's been listening right from the beginning. And if people don't know, there was a bit of a push me pull you situation, a tug of war between us and Goonosphere to sign Chris Carpenter because he was hot property. He'd guested on ABW. He guested on the Goonosphere, and we got in and asked him the day before Goonosphere asked him, and he went, well, they've asked me first, I've got to go there. And from there, it's all been downhill, Chris.
I was going to say how times have changed now. I have to pay people to get on podcasts these days. It's just gone full circle. But yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? I think you had the stats the other day of when my first show was, and I sounded horrendous. And again, nothing's changed, so it's good.
Well, we actually did one show on the, here we go, index. The first show was 000, which was the 3rd of July 2013, just me and Gimli talking nonsense. And then the second show was the first proper one, show 001. And on that show, it was, where is it going to be? It was, I sent Gav a WhatsApp of it, didn't I? So I'm going to go and look at this. It was called We Are Back and Better Than Ever. 11th of July 2013, and I wrote this out details I used to go into. It's been a while, but we are back, and this week we have a superb lineup of guests. As always, it's Lord Gimley is our host, and he is joined by Jeff Arsenal, live from his sofa, Steve Lord Hillwood, live from his mansion in Poland, FK taking time out from charming the ladies, none of that anymore, he's a married man, and then me pressing the buttons, pretending he knows what he was doing, plus on the extra section, it is Gav, live from Africa, where he has been doing a spot of charity work. And the final bit says, this week we discussed the Arsenal shirt launch, the goalkeeper situation, links to potential new strikers, possible options for the DM role, transfers with Jeff, he always made it all up, he knows nothing, finances with Steve and FK, pre-season friendlies with Danny, and then we'll have 2 to pick from. Higuain, how do you say it, Gav?
Higuain?
No, you don't. Higuain, is she? Suarez.
I was copying you cheeky git.
So we had to pick 2 from Higuain, Suarez, or Rooney, and we explained why. And I doubt very much we explained why at all. But that was it. You want to know when your debuts was? I think Chris's one was, or you two was episode 001. Chris's was episode 32. And yeah, I'm going to go and have a look at that and see episode 032 and see what that show was. You can find all this on our website, not that anyone ever goes there. It was the transfer window live, 31st of January 2014. Holiday, Chris.
Just after my birthday.
Who did we buy that window?
I don't know, but he was on podcast number 1 with FK, Jeff, French John, and Chris. So you made your debut with FK. And now you're making your last show with FK. That's convenient.
A good run.
I just want to have a little listen. We'll just listen to the intro. So I'm going to go to here, and then I'm going to go to share screen, and then I'm going to go to the very first podcast and share audio tab, and hopefully you lot can see that. And we're just going to listen to the intro, and this is how ABW used to work back in the day. Pump it up a little bit.
Hello and welcome to our Bergkamp Wonderland
Can you not hear
Arsenal
that?
podcast. I'm Kieran, and my guests tonight are, first up, he's still the ladies' favourite and co-owner of the podcast. It's Danny the GFP. Hello, mate.
Hello, you cheeky monkey, you.
How does it feel to be back?
Oh, it's like I've died and gone to Highbury.
Well, we're going to have no swearing and racism from you tonight.
Yeah. I think taking a piss out of the Scousers, the Welsh, and people from Southampton doesn't count as racism, does it?
No.
And that was just you doing that, wasn't it?
Oh, wow.
Yes.
We'll move on then. Next up, a man that doesn't need any introductions. He goes by the name of Jeff, and when he talks, the world stands still. Hello, Mr. Jeff Arsenal.
Good evening. How is everybody?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. You know what? It seems like it's been ages since we last spoke.
I think it's been near about a month, hasn't it?
Seems like a long while, mate. I'll tell you that, that's for sure.
Well, I don't know about Danny, but I can certainly say that I've missed you.
I've definitely missed you guys, that's for sure.
Such a crawler, wasn't it, Gimli?
Moving on, a man you're all familiar with, and another Lord. It's Lord Hillwood, or as we know him, Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hi there. Good evening from sweltering Poland. It's rather humid and hot here. I
Oh,
hope
bless
the
him.
podcast is going to be as hot. Nice to be back as well.
Yeah, definitely. Have you got yourself a couple of beers lined up?
No beers. I've had to shut the window because of ambulances and fire engine precautions, as I live right opposite where they set off from. But I've got a big pile of drinks and cigarettes, so I should be fine.
Well, I haven't got the cigarettes tonight, but I'm certainly with you on the drinking spirit. Right. So we'll move on then. And finally, a man whose chocolatey smooth voice will always leave you wanting more. You know him as Efakanaj, but we know him as FK. He's here from Japan. Hello.
Good evening. Very good to be with you boys.
And how you diddling?
Very well, thank you. It's a conference season at work, so I'm living off 3 hours sleep a night. But I'm awake and I'm itching. I'm ready to go.
Well, we much appreciate you coming on and giving us the time, and
pleasure, Kim.
Appreciate you joining our crazy team.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Right. First up, we'll jump straight into the shirt unveiling on Tuesday. A new face to be modern.
Wow.
There you go. I think you were at the end of it, Gav. Do you want me to go and find you? Because you did the extras on this one. We put a little bit more effort in back in them days.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. Go on then.
Oh, you
Go
got to go and talk amongst yourselves because my computer keeps playing it through the speakers. I'm going to go and find Gav's bit, and then I'll come back when I'm done. So you lot have a little chit chat.
You know, the only thing that hasn't changed is FK is still moaning about how hard he works.
Yeah, I'm still moaning about that.
Yeah, I mean, and you had hair back then as well.
Yeah, I did. It's so surreal to hear Steve's voice.
Oh,
like,
don't upsetting, mate. Do you know what I mean, I still
got me, man. Proper got
still-
me in that.
Yeah, you just want to. We had our moments where we was chalk and cheese. We was opposite ends of the political scale, so to speak. Obviously, him living in Europe, he was all in favour of the EU, and myself not so. So we had a few arguments over the years, me and Steve, and we had a little spell where we didn't talk, and then we sort of made up and kissed and made up. But I mean, I knew Steve going way back. He was one of the when I first got the internet. I ended up on this message board called Arse Online. And Steve was one of the admin on this message board. So it's just like an old-fashioned like text message system. And so there wasn't loads of us using it. There was sort of like a steady group of about a dozen of us and about sort of 30 altogether. But there used to be like a dozen of us, and we used to tap away to each other, not knowing what they looked like, what we sounded like. Nobody swapped emails. Nobody swapped phone numbers. It was all back in the days where everything was highly, highly secure, and you was worried about burglars burgling your house and nicking your car if you said what area you lived from, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, no, I don't know Steve probably since 99, 98, 99, something like that. And yeah, once sort of like Facebook started and then Twitter started, everyone sort of went their ways, but I still sort of talked to the majority of the people back then. And like I say, Steve was a big part of it. Even, blimey, probably 11 years ago when he was over from Poland, he stayed with me and my partner in our little flat in Hoxton for the night.
Did you really?
Yeah, he came over, we had dinner. We had a few glasses, as you can imagine. And then in the morning, we went up to Blackstock Road, had a few beers. He went down the Tolleton, I think, and I didn't. But yeah, no, we had a good evening, and yeah, a good sort of couple of hours in the morning before we went our separate ways. And then I don't know who we stayed at the next night, but yeah, no, like I say, I really miss him. To be fair, sometimes, do you know what I mean? He was just a character, an absolute character, and he hated Peyton, the goalkeeping coach.
Yeah, windmilling.
Yeah, I think he would have gone for him if he'd seen him. He really hated this old journalist who he said his old man went for once in the 70s because he wrote something bad about Arsenal. So his old man went to swing for him in the Upper East. Yeah, no, I mean, he was just, you knew what you got with Steve. Whether it was I agreed with it or not, he was always very, very forthright with his opinions on absolutely everything. And I respect people like that.
It was. It's. I mean, for a pod, I mean, quite a few people that are Arsenal friends of ours that have passed in recent years. But for a pod to lose two of our best people with him and Goonaholic was really sad. Just need to mention DT247 has said, "Happy 10th anniversary, lad. Been rocking with you since the Steve Ball days, and still rocking with you. Arsenal to win the league this season. Let's have it." And they've stuffed £5 down our pants. It's very kind of you, DT.
Just spare a thought for DT there. He's been with us since the beginning. You poor bastard.
I found your. I'm just going to.
You should be paying him down.
How dare you? I found your bit, Gav. So I'm just going to quickly play that, and then I want to hear from FK about how he, when he first started listening to podcasts. So I go here, mute myself this time, and that one, and this one.
Oh God. Oh no.
Well, very much for listening, and remember, keep it Arsenal. Good night.
Nanu, silly bitches.
Hello and welcome to the Bergkamp Wonderland podcast extra. Seeing as Mr. Shewalk Gav wasn't with us for the main bit, we have decided to record a little bit extra on the end. So hello, Gav.
Hiya.
And how are you doing?
Yeah, no, like I say, firstly, I'd like to apologise for not being on the main pod this week due to various family commitments and the fact that I'm currently in Nigeria. I'm doing a church thing out in Nigeria to make sure that the good, loving Christian folk of Nigeria are quite happy with gay rights. That's where I am now as you're recording. I do apologise. I'm sure you had a good time tonight. I'm very sorry I didn't get to hear Jeff talk complete bollocks about how Wenger's God. But yeah, but like I say, that's life really. I'm looking forward to the current season. Hopefully by the time people are listening to this, we've signed some 17-year-old French cripple for £4.50.
I think we've already done that.
Actually, no, Sanogo scored a hell of a goal. He had a good game the other night when they played Turkey.
I didn't see the game. I saw his goal. Do you know what I mean? I'm not being funny. Dan, you would have scored that.
It could have come off any one of my withered appendages and gone in.
Well, exactly. Do you know what I mean? All he had to do was really stand there and let the ball hit him. Do you know what I mean? The keeper jumped. The keeper jumped over.
Who was that I'm talking about? Who was it that scored?
I ain't got a clue. I just saw
Sanogo.
See, this is why, Gav, why you had a reputation for being a bit of a scumhead. Even now, you're listening to that going, "Oh,
I was thinking the Nigeria. I'm like, oh no. Do you know what I mean? I'm about to get cancelled here. I'm thinking.
That's now look at you. You've had kids. It's all settled down. You've got a beard. You've grown up, and you're looking back at that and going, "That's a little bit." I mean, you go back to the Steve Ball days, and it was even worse. So, what have you got to say for yourself, Gav, for 10 years of saying controversial things and annoying people?
I don't think I'm going to change, Dan. Am I? Do you know what I mean? I pick my words more. I just pick my words more carefully. I want to know what strike it was that it got that goal now.
What game was it?
I think it must have been Sanogo, surely.
10 years ago, what young striker did we sign in 2013?
Oh, must have been Sanogo.
It must, I think it must have been Sanogo.
Yeah, so I was right then, wasn't I?
Yeah, I think it was.
So I'm just going to go back and have a look. FK, while I'm having a look, FK, just tell us about when you first heard about podcasting and what you thought of it.
So I was listening into your podcast basically that you were doing with Jeff and Gav, and basically I've got to say a big thanks to Gav because he used to chat so much shit and I used to listen to myself. I used to listen to him because he was always effing and blinding about Wenger, and we were always at it on Twitter. Do you remember like Tim Payton, Jeff Arsenal, or Highbury Harold, and like we'd always give each other so much stick about it. Rowe would be back there in the day. And I remember I just approached Gimli and I was like, can I just get on one show with him? Because I just want to have it out. I want to be able to like come back at his points. And he just, come on the first show and he again, just typical to form, chatted so much shit. And it was so much fun. It was like, and we just, I think, I mean, to be honest, Gav,
say whatever you wanted.
A lot of people won't know this, but obviously Gav's become a good friend of mine, and been around his house a few times. He sorted me out lots of merchandise. Had we live close to one another, and I got all the time in the world for him. And it's funny. You basically develop mates, don't you, from random things like this? And I know, Danny, I've said to you, years ago that I'd come out and see you in Cambridge. I still want to do that.
You nearly did.
Still
you
haven't gotten around.
Your brother-in-law, he was at Cambridge Hospital doing something. You went, I'll pop round tonight, and then you didn't. You came home, and that's as close.
No,
that's close enough.
It was late. Yeah, my brother-in-law is based out there. He still works at that hospital. My sisters obviously moved there as well. And they got 3 boys. They live out in Newmarket, but it's just funny, like social media antics and just chatting to random people on podcasts. You make real friends, like real people that you want to talk to and message throughout the day. And Gav and I are still on the old WhatsApp. We're still on the old chats. He's co-host of the phone-ins that we do on Latte Firm. And it's amazing, man. 10 years. I just can't believe it.
It's funny, mate. The best thing is now we can see your head. Now it's not firmly up Arsenal's backside, which is nice.
Your head's still to come out of George Graham. So,
Danny or Abby are talking about George Graham like that. No, it's I used to look forward to it because, I mean, obviously when I weren't on every single Bergkamp Wonderland podcast, but back then it was always interesting where you had completely opposite views, where you had people, because the fan base was split between people that knew that Wenger would never win the title again and people that still had some sort of faith even though he was signing Sonogo. So it just made for an interesting chat, and I never actually I mean, for the amount of times me and you got quite heated, FK, do you know what I mean? But I used to look forward to it. I used to enjoy it and enjoy the sparring aspect of it. Do you know what I mean? I mean, now it seems like a lot of podcasts are too, everyone's friendly and happy and nice because it's going well. It's always sort of conflicting ideas. Sometimes I felt made a more interesting show.
Well, as we always used to say, be careful what you wish for, Gav, because we're only 6 losses away from disaster, and then all of a sudden it's all, Arteta out, Arteta in, and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, it was really good fun. And for those of you who are tuning in maybe to this channel for the first time tonight, yeah, there's history, and but it's really good history, and it's brought, I consider Gav a dear friend, so yeah, just mate, it's a pleasure to get involved, Danny, and that's how it's all kind of unraveled.
It is. Chris, you were an outsider at the beginning. You didn't make your debut until, I was saying, 2014. So by then, between Steve's Bold Collective and ABW, there'd been, well, I think that was 2012, most of us started on a Steve's Bold Collective. As a listener, what did you think of the podcast? And then what did you think when we said, do you want to come on? Because Gimli found you, didn't he? And I said, I don't want anyone. We don't need any more people coming on.
Can we tell everybody? Can we just before you answer, Chris? Can we just tell everybody that FK's put himself on mute because he's gone to sort his fish fingers out?
Fish finger sandwich.
That's a secret. But yeah, basically, I've been so busy working, that hasn't changed, Danny, that I've not had any dinner, and I've just whacked a few fish fingers, a couple of waffles, and some spaghetti hoops.
Oh, look at that! Proper meth dinner.
Michelin-starred food.
Middle class dining.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Okay, Chris.
I was a fan. We're talking before we went on air. Like, it was in the days of iPods. Like, not just it was actual iPods. I still got mine. I found it the other day. I was cleaning out some drawers, and it's still there. It still works, believe it or not. And it was iTunes, which was an actual desktop Apple thing that you brought up on your PC. And I have to give a shout out to my friend Kieran, who probably won't be listening tonight because he's got a life and kids and all. Well, not kids, but a wife and family and cats and dogs and everything now. But we used to chat all the time. He's a big Arsenal fan. He's like, "Oh, have you heard of podcasts?" And I was like, "No, I never heard of podcasts." And this is back in the day where, Danny, you'll appreciate this, when Talk Sport was Talk Radio, and I used to listen religiously to the James Wales show late at nights. To kind of go to sleep, really. That was what I used to listen to, and that's what kind of got me into like radio shows. And then I progressed to the 5 Live European football show, which like Andy Brassel and I think Dotton was on it back then, and that's kind of what got me into football phone-ins. And then that progressed to like the 606s of this world, and then the invention of podcasts kind of came. And I still say, I think we all tip our hat to Andrew at Arseblog. He was the first, and to this day is probably still the very best out there. But aside from Arseblog, there wasn't many Arsenal podcasts before us. There just wasn't. I'm sure there was one or two. Danny, you would know better than anybody else. You'd have. I'm going to bring you up
the thing you're looking for. There we go.
There you go.
This is my own spreadsheet that I've made in order of who started when. So that's that column there.
And that is kind of nuts, isn't it? And if you look at that, I mean, I remember the Tuesday Club because I think that was the one that Garen first put me in touch with, actually, along with Arseblog. I remember the Online Gouda podcast. I vaguely remember Arsenal Review USA. Did that go on to become Arsenal Vision? Is that the same guys or?
I don't know because I got the people there. It says someone Kyle and Joel, but There was some of them
it
that
might
had
have
similar
been
names.
someone different.
But look how many are still going. I mean, for people at home and on the toilet and on the bus and walking the dog, the first Arsenal podcast was Arseblog, 20th of October 2006. Then it's the Online Gooner podcast, 2008. They've now finished. Arsenal Review USA, 2009. They've finished. Arsenal America, which then become Arse America podcast. I think it's 2011. I've actually emailed Chris, the bloke who owns it, said, when did you start your first pod? So I don't know when that is. That's finished. Tuesday Club, they have not done a show in over a year, so I've put that as finished. It's up for grabs now, which was the Tuesday Club. That obviously finished, and then they created the Tuesday Club. Then Football Tastically Arsenal, the Executive Box Wankers, they're still going, 2011. Then it was Steve's Bald, Hong Kong Gooner, which was in Chinese. And then Yamacast, which was Michael Price. He's brought his back as another one. And then a Bergkamp Wonderland. And that's it. At the original first, we were 12. At the first 12 Arsenal podcasts, only 3 going, Chris. Still.
I mean, that is nuts. And I remember coming on the first time, and you will still have it somewhere, and maybe tack it onto the extras. But I remember you made a clip of me basically just making noises and sounds and yeah, absolute gem, which I'm sure Danny will find for the extras at the end of this podcast. But I've come a long way since then, because I think what people don't. I'm going to blow our trumpets a bit here, because why not? We've got some of the best to do it on this show tonight. You know, FK's gone with, what he's done with Last Firm is brilliant. Gav will always be Gav and never change Gav, because what you do is fantastic. But it's a skill to broadcast. It's a skill to put yourself out there. And it can be quite nerve-wracking. And Danny, you'll know we've
Carpenter out.
There you go. we've tried many people in the past who it just hasn't been for, because either they weren't brilliant talkers, or they couldn't sort of articulate what had great content but couldn't get it out, said the vicar to the schoolboy. And it is a skill, and it takes a lot, and you do have to be quite thick-skinned, and not everybody's going to like the way you look, the way you talk, or both in my case. And it is you really have to be made of strong stuff to put it out there, and you have to probably be able to sort of talk on this as well. But when you create your own brand, or when you put your own podcast out there, you have to have the belief in the product you're putting out, and the trust in the guests you're booking, and know that everything you're putting out, it comes back on you. Because ultimately, just like people dig out James Maddison's tweets when he was at Leicester and he's now signed for Spurs about hating Spurs 10 years ago, you can bet your ass some smart ass on the internet will find the clip of you saying, oh yeah, well, I always thought Fabregas was shit. There will always be someone who will dig out something that you've said once upon a time. And when you do a podcast, that's what you put yourself out there for. And just being able to talk, it's a skill. And in everyday life, if any of you guys or girls who are listening to this, if you've got a job and your boss comes in and says you need to do a presentation, or you need to do a Teams hosting call or whatever, there'll be people to this day that will go, oh my God, no, I can't do that. It's difficult. And to get on and come from where I was with the clip Danny will play, it was. I can't find it. I'm sure you'll find it at some point, but
it's on the hard drive that I can only get to if I unplug my mic, because I've only got one USB B thing.
Oh, well, that'll be a treat for post production, then maybe, or on the YouTube. But maybe that's a good short to upload. Anymore. But
is that the hard drive you hide from the police then?
No, that one's labelled.
One of 10 that he hides from the police. But yeah, it is.
Under the floorboards.
It is definitely a skill, and to be going all this time, and I still to this day still find it nuts that somebody can be. How can I put it? Somebody can be walking their dog in America, in Canada, in Africa, in Sweden, or in Basingstoke, and can hear us. I still think that's amazing that, if I die tomorrow, heaven forbid I don't, but if I die tomorrow, I think it's really cool that you can have something to look back on and say, I'm proud of that, and I was on that. And that's why we treasure the podcast we still have with Steve and Dave on, because, their memories will go on through podcasts. And although nowadays it's very easy to start one and just record it, takes a long craft to get to where we are with 100 or 500. Was it 10? No, 10 anniversary. I mean, that's nuts. 500 shows. It's just mental. And begrudgingly, Danny, you probably deserve a bit of credit. Not much, but you know, a little bit. You know.
Matt Roberts has put, I've heard that number 213 is quite good. Matt Roberts, who has actually been on a show with us before. Mr. Waffles, he's been on a show with us. I think Jimmy might have been on a show. I'm not sure. Phil hasn't. Who else? I'm just looking through the list here of people who have been on, might have been on a show. No, if you have been on a show, do shout and let us know. Got a couple of questions which we're going to save for the end. So just looking at this, I'm always interested in how many Arsenal podcasts there are. Now, this isn't a definitive list, but you can see number one was, well, it says number two there, but number one was Arseblog. And then you go all the way down, keep going, all the way down. I've got down to 212 Arsenal podcasts.
Wow.
Now, quite a few of them are no longer existing. I'm going to go and find the DHE... Is yours called The Latte Firm or Latte Firm?
I think it's just Latte Firm, Latte.
Maybe
you need to add that in there.
There is. I found one the other day that I haven't added in there. Yeah, I don't know why yours isn't in there. It's not done. So once you get down, once I get down to, as you can see from all the way down here, I've only got to 122, and then down after that, I've not even got the dates or finished doing it. So this is published. People can go and have a look at it, and if they do, and you find any that aren't on there, do let me know, because I would like to have a comprehensive list of every single Arsenal podcast. Stop sharing on that. Yeah. So FK, you started your own one. What was because you took a break, didn't you? Because you decided to have some babies. And you were worked really hard and got quite high up in the job that you do. And you went, I'm going to have to take a break from podcasting. And then you went away. And then what made you decide to come back and start your own podcast, which is taking, I mean, you were up for a nomination at the awards last year. That was in your first year of doing stuff. So you're obviously doing something, right? Why did you come back? Not that you shouldn't.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I loved doing it. You know, so all we talked about at the start, like just chatting about football. Who doesn't enjoy it, right? You know, chatting to Gav, chatting to Jeff, chatting to you, Gimli, all the various guests and journalists that we had on. It was really good fun. But you're right, I was focused on my career, and then obviously once kids came along, and what basically changed, Danny, was lockdown, COVID, and because I wasn't able to go to games, I was just feeling frustrated that I didn't have this release, because I value the company of my mates when I go to a game on a match day, whether it's home and away. I love the company. I love chatting about football. I feel relaxed when I get back home, even if we won or lost, because for me, it's about the experience. And maybe it's like, as you get older, you value these things more than the football itself, maybe. And because we weren't going to games, I thought to myself, do you know what? I'm at home all the time. And the culture of doing video calls, like Chris was saying, it's really hard to talk. But like when, everyone embraced Teams and everyone was just in video calls all the time. So I thought, I'm just going to start it. Why not? I've got a decent social media following on Twitter. Let's reach out to some people who might want to help me get involved. And it's kind of just evolved. And I started the channel, just over a year and a half ago now. And yeah, you're right, Gav. Danny and Gav, I was blown away by the nominations for the Football Content Awards, where I was shortlisted to the final 6. And that was in the first 6 months of just being live, and I learned a lot from that whole experience. Didn't win it, of course, but to be amongst those names was just amazing, and it gave me some recognition. And I'd say now that the first full season is complete, it's been the most incredible journey. And obviously it helps when the football's great, right? I'm yet to experience, as a host of a channel, like the football not being great and people being at arms with each other, and that's going to be slightly different. But it's just so exciting to be an Arsenal fan that actually the channel's kind of benefited from that. So yeah, that's how it's kind of started. That's how it's kind of evolved. I still do it once, twice a week as a bit of a release. Loads more stuff to come, hopefully, and we'll get bigger and bigger and stronger and stronger. And I'm trying to improve all the time as a host, because Danny, you do it with ease. It is difficult hosting stuff. Gav comes on as a co-host of the Football Phone-Ins, and when you've got an hour and a half and you just need to fill all the awkward gaps and introduce people in and try and engage all your listeners and viewers and whatnot, yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult, but I love it. I get nervous before every show. I get the little butterflies sort of kick in. I'm praying that all the slides go right, or all the content goes right, or all the buttons that you're bashing now, like working through the chat. I hope that you don't get any negative comments in the chat, because if you haven't got anything nice to say, just don't say it. But you get it. So yeah, mate, it's I love it, Danny, and I've got the bug for it, and I really enjoy doing it. Most of all, I love the Sunday night shows. I love all the breakdowns and the match previews and all that sort of stuff. I think you've just got to be passionate about it, and I love it. So as long as the feedback continues to be positive, and as long as it kind of keeps growing, then we'll just see where it goes.
Wonderfully put, FK. J Rob has slipped €2 down our pants. Thank you very much for that, J Rob. FK, question for you: do you ever think? I often talk to Sophie from the Hybrid Squad with Kev Campbell, and they are magnificent. They had Jack Wilshere on that show, and I think it got 15,000 views. Do you often do stuff and you think, the most effort we've ever put into a podcast was Chris and Goonaholic, where Chris we were doing was it the Invincibles you did, Chris, or was it? Yeah. And Chris went, right, this YouTube link, this minute. I went and got that audio. This YouTube, I had to do about 30 of those. It took me 3 days to put it together. Chris and Goonaholic talked through it, and it was the most amount of production we've ever done in a podcast. No one gave a shit. Didn't get any more views than anything else. And when Sophie is getting the likes of Aaron Ramsdale's dad on 2 pods, with Aaron Ramsdale is on the second one sorting out the video for his dad. Do you ever think sometimes you put in so much effort, and not without moaning about it, but you put in a lot of effort, and then you'd think, that was a bit disappointing, which is why ABW, we start at point A, then we finish at point B, and I do fuck all else to it because I can't be bothered, because the days of putting in effort for them people to go, nah, I might watch it. And Jack Wilshere, that should have been 100,000 views for Sophie, because that podcast with Jack bloody Wilshere. Do you ever come across that? I know you're a man who's not going to moan or swear like I do, but
I'll give you a slightly different. I'll put it a slightly different way. You just had a spreadsheet up that showed over 200 Arsenal content creators, right?
I've added yours now.
Thank you. So competition is fierce, and view it as competition, because while we're doing a show right now, there's another show out there that's probably being aired that aren't getting the viewers that you've got in the chat that you've got in the chat. And it's so good to see an active chat, right? As a creator, and especially as a new creator, as someone who hosts a channel and makes shows,
I'm a creator.
Hashtag creator, Danny. Hashtag creator.
It's when he calls himself an influencer, that's when you know he's gone too far.
Come on. I'm there, man. I've got the round spectacles and everything. No, but listen, there is, when you make shows, obviously there's a lot of time and effort that goes into them. Some people like to have fully fledged slide decks like I do, and they take forever, because I like to have pictures and graphics and images. You've got to source the right things, then you've got to source the right people. Then you've got to arrange the shows at a mutually convenient time. And if you've got a lot going on in your personal life, you might be a carer, you might have kids, you might have this, that, and the other. I'm all of the above. I'm a carer for my folks, and I've got my kids. And so it's really difficult. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's heartbreaking when something doesn't go your way and you don't get the numbers that you think it deserves. And then you look at another content creator, and they're getting all these guests, or they're getting these massive hits. And if I'm being brutally honest with you, Danny, you do look on with envy. You think to yourself, wow, these guys are well connected, or they're just so lucky. But what keeps me going is, I don't know where the end goal is, but I enjoy it. But B, I think good things come to those who just work hard. And I know my time hopefully will come at some point. The recognition is great. The popularity of the channel is growing, and I get all of that. But I haven't had my moment yet, Danny, where I've had an A-list guest. I've had journalists, like Henry Winter was the first guest on my show, and so many other journalists. But what I would do for an ex-Arsenal player, or an Arsenal player, or a celeb of some sort, to kind of really smash the numbers in it.
We had David Hillier come on the one of the space lives, didn't he? One of the Twitter lives.
Yeah, you're right, Gav. I mean, the spaces are slightly different. The space we get all sorts of people on the spaces. We so many verified people get Frimmy from Frimpon from Arsenal who tunes in most days. But like the YouTube channel is slightly different. And Danny's question about do you ever look at others and think, wow, yeah, you do, Danny. If I'm being brutally honest with you, sometimes I look at other channels and I think, wow, man, you've got so much time and you put in so much effort and you get the right guest and you got the right energy behind it. Because that's the other thing. Making the show is one thing, like what we're doing right now. But as well as I do, Danny, to set up the studio links, to then do all the tweets, to then like promote it, publicize it. It's a proper full-time job. And there are creators out there, excellent creators out there who do this as their full-time role. And I know that I can never do that. So yeah, sometimes I look on and I just think, if only life was a little bit different. But it is what it is. And I look at it quite reasonably, I think. And like I said, I think good things come to those who work hard. So hopefully my time is around the corner, but who knows?
Do you know the ones that I like that you do, FK? Because I mean, like I say, I do.
The ones that you're on, let me guess.
No, not the ones that I'm on. Do you know what I mean? I'm nowhere near good looking enough to go on a latte firm YouTube one. I like the ones where you've got Fem and Walid and Was, and you've all got your snacks out, and you're talking about you're trying to one up each other by who's got the best bar of chocolate that week, and I actually like the chemistry that you've got between you more than if you've got some journalist on there. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like you've obviously done football slightly different to me over the years, but it's sort of an insight on how your little lot do it and how you interact with each other, and you're always going for a meal afterwards and stuff like that. And it's just a like I say, it's been eye opening for me, but I kind of like listening to them ones because it's real. This is how you really actually do it, and it comes across on your content.
I appreciate that, Gav. I know you've highlighted the comment, Danny, but Jimmy H32, hello, Jimmy. I don't think we've met before. But your comment here saying, can I just thank you to this podcast for the year I struggled with mental health issues, and because of the show, I went and got help. Podcast has helped me in some of the hardest times.
We did
honestly, chaps.
If mental health show with Deke sorted that out a couple of weeks ago.
If I could give you, so if I had £1 for every time I had a DM or a chat or a tweet saying, FK, like, you won't believe me, but just watching your show has helped me get through some of the toughest times. And there's one example that springs to mind. There's a chap who called Vivlad who tunes in, and he lives in Ukraine, went through obviously all the horrific stuff that they've been going through, and he would constantly write messages. And at first I thought he was joking, but he'd write messages like, I don't know if I'm going to be here next week, so it's a pleasure to just be watching you guys talk about Arsenal. Sorry, man, it's quite emotional. And he'd message me and stuff like that, and he'd just say, like, your shows just keep me going. And you realize the impact you're having on a lot of people. And I know it sounds really stupid, but like, you feel so good about it. So it actually doesn't matter. Nothing else matters, actually. If you're little old you making little content like this, people tune in and they enjoy what you have to say. And different people have different challenges in life, like everyone's got their own challenges and struggles and whatnot. But it's so powerful. This medium is so powerful. Like, to be able to give people a feel that they're part of a little community and they can tune into their favorite Arsenal fans talking about football. It's amazing. And some of the comments you get of football as well. I mean, Gav, people see me at the Emirates and they'll shout, "Oh, latte," or FK or whatever. And, people say the nicest things, and they'll even say, "Oh, yeah, that Gav is so funny on the spaces. You two really get on." Like, even that stuff's really uncomfortable, but it's
you
really
never
nice.
told you've never once told me that.
Nah, why would I? I'm not gonna get you even bigger head. But no, mate, honestly, Danny, the power of these podcasts and content that you make is immense. And I think Jimmy's comment there is phenomenal.
It's like
and a lot of people live in isolation as well, right, Danny? People, like, during COVID and lockdown, people have lived on their own. They want to feel part of something, and they feel connected to, obviously, the football club, but they feel connected to the content. And it's just it's for them, like, it's different for us because we're on screen, but for them it's something they look forward to and they want to engage with, and it's so humbling, man, so humbling.
Another message here, Arsenio Wonga, a long-time listener to the show, says, I've had depression since childhood, so I know how it is. I send shout-outs to anyone suffering from this never-ending battle. Demsek, another friend of the show, the Highbury squad helped me out with my depression. It's difficult to find the right type of content. Friend of ours, Phil Macker, absolutely right. I was living on my own and I found the interaction made me feel less alone. When Danny calls out your name and ribs you, it's cool. And Brady's Banana puts, true, I had 2 years of insomnia. I watched and rewatched ABW through this through the night. I'm grateful.
And it's cured him.
Yeah, it has. But Chris,
he now sleeps very, very soundly. No, I'm not the greatest sleeper in the world, and
yeah, no, when I get a phone call at 2 a.m.
Yeah, because I ain't been like that for a while. But I put a podcast on, every night. Every night I'm on Spotify or whatever it is, and I'll find a podcast. And
I do that every night too. I listen to a podcast called the Higher Side Chats. It's like the Fireside Chats, which would be the American president. It's all conspiracy stuff and magnificent. I love them.
I'm not even going to tell you what I'm listening to at the moment because
is it country and western
erotica
dancing.
No, it's really bad. It's like an 83-year-old and a 60-year-old talking about he's basically Jack Whitehall's parents, the comedian, and he's a gooner, and he so you're allowed. But his parents do a podcast show sort of once or twice a week, and that helps me sleep because they've got sort of soothing voices, and you don't have to concentrate too much like listening to you, Danny. And it just sort of helps, and it's whatever sort of helps anybody in any sort of situation, if it's their mental health, if it's their sleeping, or whatever.
That's very true, Chris.
It's really powerful.
There's two ways we can go down this one. I know we're running out of time, but do we go down the people that have met you at the football and gone, oi, or do we go down the ABW have always been a place where we like the waifs and strays? Anybody can contact. There's half the people in the chat now I follow on Twitter, even though I've never podcasted with them. And we have had emails and DMs, like you were saying, FK, from people saying, we've done 2 or 3 mental health podcasts. Luckily, I've never struggled with that for a moment in my life. And they've contacted us and they said, that show you've done, I think it might have been, he said it before, it might be our very own Nicky Wilson said, I was feeling really, really down. I didn't know what to do. I listened to our own podcast and then I went and saw the doctor, and now look at him, he's off in London with his little bit of fluff, and that's why he's not on tonight. So Chris, which one do you want to go down? The ABW always make adopting these waifs and strays, or oi, aren't you that bloke from that podcast? Which one do you want to go down?
I think you can do both kind of very quickly.
Go on.
The funniest one that I'll ever remember was, and he's gonna hate me if he listens to this because I cannot remember the bloody name of the chap. But I was literally doing my shopping as in Sainsbury's. And for those who don't know, I live in Plymouth in the southwest, which is miles away from Arsenal. And I shit you not, this guy came up to me and he went, "All right, Chris, how you doing? I like the podcast." I went, I had really took me a second to go, "A podcast? What? Who?" And he was looking at me and I was looking at him, and it was one of those awkward. And he went, "ABW, right?" I went, "Yeah." And he recognised me from the YouTube shows, and I was just like, it just blew me away because this is clearly like a guy who, because he could have said at any point, "Oh, I live in Plymouth, I enjoy your show," blah. But it was just like he just wandered up to me like it was just nothing, and it totally blew me away. It really did. And much like FK, I've had a very small amount of people come up, sort of when I've been up to games. I don't get to games as much as many people do living down here, and it costing $6,000 to get anywhere these days. But yeah, you have the occasional one, and probably again the one that stands out to me was when I went up with Jace a couple of years back, and a chap from Brazil was outside the Armoury, asked me to sign his shirt. I've never felt so stupid in all my life. I literally said to the guy, I was like, you do realise I'm literally a nobody, right? I'm not like, I'm just me. He's like, no, I know who you are. I know you are. I like the podcast. You sign the show. No problem. It was just so random. But it's nice. It's really cool when you get that. And as for adopting people, I think FK and Gav have said it best. You know, we all deal with things in different ways. I recently, a couple of years ago, I found Twitch. I know we've got a couple of Twitch viewers that are on now at the moment, and that's kind of my release. You know, just watching other content creators play games, and you got a live chat and that sort of thing. And I pretty much have Twitch on every night when I go to bed, and I mod for a channel, lady in America, who streams horror games, and it's just really fun to be part of that community. But it's especially nice when you do get, you know, the odd tweet, and as Gav will probably attest to, running sort of online stores and that. Twitter is not always the nicest place in the world. There'll always be somebody who wants to pull you down when you're riding the crest of a wave, or sometimes I think people just like to watch the world burn. But you will get those people that just come out of nowhere once in a while and just say, "Oh, I really like this," or "I really like that," or, you know, "I agree." And it's something I try and do a lot now. I did it with Paul. People know him, Poznan in my pants. He was talking on their podcast about Kai Havertz the other day. And I always try to reach out to people when I hear something and go, "Do you know what? That was really good. I really like what you said on that show the other night." They might see it, they might not. But I just think it's quite nice to acknowledge other people's content when you hear it and you know, something that resonates with you, because that little comment can make someone's day. And I think, like FK said as well, when you put that much effort into it, Danny, effort, you should try it sometime. When you put that much effort into podcasts and into content creation, just having that one person, whether they've got 1 follower or 50,000 followers, sort of reach out to you and say, "Oh, I really like that. That's a really good point. Like, you know, that was a really good show," whatever it is. It just makes it all worthwhile. And we do get that. And it's really cool when you can have people sort of come up to you and say, "Yeah, I've listened to this, or I've listened to that, and I agreed with what you said." Or sometimes I thought you were a bloody idiot, but it's still, that's a listen, you know, and that's still really good engagement, and we enjoy having that in this little community. And as we said before we started recording tonight, we're not highbrow. We never have been, as Gav will attest to. We do things in our own unique way, but we're all Arsenal fans, and we all want the same thing. We all enjoy the same club. We're all part of this sort of wider community. And if you want highbrow, you can find that sort of podcast. If you want in the middle, you can find that. If you want lowbrow and scraping the gutter, but still Arsenal fans, you can find us. So it's a good way of sort of mixing and matching the content, and we just enjoy doing it. As the guys have said, it's good to have a chat with mates and all over the same. You all want the same thing. How many other things in life can you say we all want the same thing? Very few things. So it's good to be part of a community like that.
FK, you need to go because you've eaten your fish fingers and you've had 2 hours sleep today. So say your goodbyes and then mention your podcast again.
Thank you so much, Danny, first and foremost, for having me on. Really lovely to speak to you as well, Chris. It's been a long time. Big fan of your hair, and Gav, of course. And I just see a picture of Dave up there. Amazing. And to hear Steve's voice at the start. A road trip down memory lane. Thank you to all the kind comments as well. Some mentions of Latte Firm. I mean, if you want to find me on Twitter, I'm F Carnage, or F Fuckanage, as Gimli used to call me from Japan. And if you want to enjoy some other content, Latte Firm is obviously my YouTube channel. I'm going to do a show there shortly. And I think, obviously, as soon as the new season's back, Gav, we're going to start doing the post-match phone-ins. It's the only place you can get a post-match phone-in. So come and, have your say and talk about your views, and Dempset, you'd be very welcome. But Danny, listen, thank you, mate. And 10 years, what an anniversary. I woke up this morning and all the talk was about Sol Campbell 22 years ago. But actually this anniversary means a lot more to me on a personal note. So I really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you very much for all the, quite literally, hundreds of hours you've given to ABW, to Steve's Ball Collective, and to your own Latte Firm. And you don't get paid for it, and I don't even make enough money to pay for the hosting of the website on this, and I don't really need
exactly.
it. Luckily,
everything costs.
Yeah, luckily I don't need
StreamYard, VPNs, all that sort of stuff. But
yeah,
no, thank you, mate. I appreciate it.
it's been lovely to have you on again, and hopefully the listeners will come and watch your new podcast, because I've watched it quite a few times. You are very sensible, very, very well organised, and some of the slides you have coming up, it's I don't know who done. I know you're not doing it. You got some wizard doing that stuff for you.
I do it all. It takes fucking ages, but I do it all.
Oh dear. Anyway, thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Chris. See you soon. All my love,
mate.
man.
Take care.
Gav,
all the best.
Speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon, matey.
Oh, I can change the formation of that. Have we got? Do you two need to go? Have you got another 10, 15 minutes?
Yeah,
I've got about 10. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, meeting people, that's strange. I remember Kate, Gimley's other half, said she was sat on a train coming back from the football, and she heard two people talking about the Bergkamp Wonderland, going, they really liked it, and she didn't have the nerve to go, well, actually, I'm on. Oh, she was on it. She was useless when she was on it, but she was on it.
Mm-hmm.
But she could have said, my other half, Gimley, invented it and is the host of it, but she didn't say anything. And the last time I went to, I've only been to one foot Arsenal game in the 10 years ABW have been going, and that was Arsenal 3, Aston Villa 2, peak Emery. It was September 2019, just before the world ended, and I was meant to meet Dave Goonholic on that day, but the lift where I went up and down was broken, and so I had to go around and use the service lift, and it took me 20 minutes, and he said, I can't wait any longer, I'm getting a lift to the pub, I've got to go. And that would have been lovely if I'd have actually gone and met him that day, but I did. And Sean said, if we meet anybody who knows you, who recognise you from the podcast, I am gonna shrivel up. And it went all day. No one said anything. Half time, I went to the toilet. She went to the toilet. I went with her and waited outside. And a bloke come out of the toilet at the same time that she did, and he walked off. I think I follow him on Twitter, and he stopped. He came back, stuck his head round the corner, went, Danny, yeah, love the podcast. And I just looked at Sean and I smiled, and she went, "Oh, will you fuck off?" That is the one and only time. Have you had any, Gav? Did anybody recognise your voice from anything?
No. See, I'm kind of the reverse, because I've never put my face on anything. I think the only time there's been a sort of photo of me on Twitter was when a fella called
Don't Do Drugs campaign.
No, a fella called Danny Bailey passed away, and because my surname's Bailey as well, and there used to be a pub called the Bailey down Holloway Road. I've got a picture of me and him with like a Bailey Gooners flag, and that was taken probably about 12 years ago, and I think Danny passed about two and a half. He passed towards the end of COVID. But that's the only time I've sort of put a picture of my face on anything. So I'm kind of the reverse, because I sell merchandise, and that's coming up for its 10th year next year. I've been sort of full-time doing Arsenal social media, which again never paid me a penny really, apart from the fact that I use my social media for my shop, and I've dispatched probably about 25,500 different parcels over the 9.5 years. So it's quite often when I'm at matches, I'll see somebody that I don't know or don't recognise who's actually wearing one of my t-shirts. So I'm the reverse, thinking, that fella's bought off me. I touched that t-shirt. I put that t-shirt into a bag. I designed that t-shirt, and it's kind of nice in that respect. But like I say, I don't know whether I'm shy or whether I would not. I just don't think I would enjoy going somewhere where some random you don't know comes up and says hello. I mean, I've had it a few times over the years where someone says, "Oh, right, Gav, how are you?" Or you have a chat for 5 minutes and you walk off thinking, "Who the fuck was that?" And it was obviously somebody from a drunken chat, or for when I used to do a stall in the Jules pub or something like that. But I kind of like the fact that I can probably go up Arsenal, and the only people that I'm going to see and speak to and chat and are going to recognise me is people that I've known over the years going up there.
Yeah, I know. We know what you looked like. We saw it at the beginning of the show, and it wasn't a pretty sight. So you probably are doing people a favour that way.
Oh, cheers, mate. No, like I say, I'm not all painting them eyes, you know what I mean? But no, it's just, I don't know. It's just some things you're comfortable with doing. I mean, I'm comfortable with talking, and before I did the merchandise shop, I was probably doing telesales for the best part of 15 years before that. So, sort of talking and arguing about Arsenal stuff and about football stuff is something that just sort of comes naturally. It comes from, one of my best mates as a teenager was actually a Tottenham supporter, and literally we ended up sharing a house for 6 years, but we used to spend literally every Friday night down the pub, and everybody else would just get the hump with us because we're debating over players and arguing over players and this, that, and the other. And I think the
first thing I ask somebody when I meet anybody, what team do you support? What car do you drive? And I judge them mercilessly. And if they support Man United, Liverpool, Man City, and they have a southern accent, I go, "Oh, I knew you were a Liverpool fan. I can tell from the accent." And they always go, they just say, and they just go, they leave. They give me whatever they're giving me, and they leave, because you should support a club that you have ties to or where you were grown up around.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Do you know what I mean? It's that was a weird one because all his family were, apart from one, were West Ham. His uncle, again, no longer with us, bless him. His uncle Dave, absolute lunatic, under 5 ICF fella, who used to give me a lot of grief when I was younger in the pub. But like I say, all in banter sort of thing. But it's it just is what it is, Dan. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I've enjoyed doing these podcasts over the years, and I thank you for that. And I mean, you don't get as much credit as you should, really, because, like I say, you're sort of one of the first. How can I put it? Non-professional. If you ever look at all the podcasts above you, they were set up by producers, people with studios, people that are full-time journalists, basically. And you were the sort of the first person, really, after that Steve Bold, which was, Jesus, some of them early recordings are completely awful. But you were the first person.
If you ever want them.
Yeah, I mean, you were sort of the first person that bought doing it from your home with a polished, not a polished performances on how we act or how we behave, but the actual production side of things, where the amount of times you used to have a go at me because my Wi-Fi wasn't good enough, or I wasn't plugged into an Ethernet. Or
Chris, for those at home, Chris is smiling and going, "Oh, the amount of conversation. Get your decent camera, sort your audio out." And I spent years and years and years, and now whenever anything to do with ABW goes on to do another podcast, people probably go, "Wow, that's that." There's still stuff going on now. Professional people on TV, and their setup isn't as good as what all of ABW have.
And like I say, I mean, you sort of pioneered it in that respect, and you know what I mean. It was you pioneered the fact that you can do this on a budget at home if you put the work in, and you certainly put the work in. You worked out how to record. I mean, obviously, a few recordings did go astray over the years.
One.
Well, Dan, I mean,
Mr. Honigstein still won't let that go.
Exactly. I mean, I once booked a minibus to Cardiff away, and the minibus didn't turn up. Again, many, many years later, it still get mentioned. I'm known as the person who booked the non-existent minibus. But yeah, no, it's just a credit to you, mate, and it's a credit to the hard work and the fact that you've got lists for everything, absolutely everything. You've got a list of every single guest on every single show, on where the show is. You've got them all on hard drives hidden under your floorboards.
You go to bergkampwonderland.co.uk and click on index, and they are all. I've not updated it in a few months, but they're all there. Every single person.
Yeah, and it, like I say, I mean, you deserve a happy 10th anniversary, and like I say, you've done absolutely brilliant, mate. And the way I look at it, and I mean, see, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do a regular one, but I do enjoy the post-match ones that I do with FK at the moment because they're done on space on Twitter. There's me, him, this fella called Wayne. We have a little chat, and then we get other people to come on. It's almost like a phone-in show. So we get other people come on. They have their 5-10 minutes. Sometimes me or Wayne or FK will put them up if we don't agree with what they're saying, and we have a little debate on there. But it's sort of like try and get as many different people on there as possible. And sometimes I can go on there and literally hardly speak for an hour and a half and thoroughly enjoy it.
Is indeed. Anything else to add to any of this, Chris? Because without people say it's me, but without you lot, I moan at everybody all the time, but without everybody else, I wouldn't be able to do this, because I've done a couple of shows with just me talking on my own, and then it will just be what I've had for dinner, what my cats are doing, what I can see out the window, memories of things that I've lost down the back of a sofa. Without you lot going, get on with it. Hold on, I think I've actually got Steve saying that in our thing. Have I got? No, it's a splendid business. Is the only one I've got.
Splendid business.
And as a motorbike goes by.
Splendid business. Splendid business.
There you go.
I still like the full quiche. That's still the best. I think I'll let you in on a piece of magic here, Danny, on that very subject. So a few months ago now, I came. Well, I say a few. Yeah, it is a few months now. I came to the end of a work contract. Wasn't 100% sure which direction I was going to go in for my next role. Was feeling a bit sort of like, oh God, what next? As everyone does when they get made redundant or contract ends and whatnot. And I basically made the decision then. I was like, right, I'm going to do one podcast a week, every week. And that's my French football one, purely because in the nicest possible way, it was a bit shorter and it was usually the same day every week. So I was like, right,
because you never get on with it.
Exactly. And I'm going to do nothing else. And I was chatting to Karl a couple of weeks into it, and Karl said to me, I said, Danny's got the ump with me, Karl. He's got the ump with me.
I've got to help with everyone. I fired Gav twice.
Well, this is it, and this is the best thing that Karl said to me. Is he turned around to me and went, "Oh, Danny's always got the fucking ump. Just ignore him. He's being a prick." And it was like, but that's what we like, kind of, because we know what we're like. And I said to Karl then, I was like, once I got a job sorted out and I got, everything's fallen back into, I'll be back. It's no problem. And sure enough, here I am. So, but we take the mick out of you, Danny, because, for those who don't know, obviously, you're in your chair and you've got your own commitments in life, and that doesn't involve full-time jobs. And unfortunately, us lot do have full-time jobs, and sometimes that is hard. And I think FK made the point earlier on about it. Sometimes our shows are not always as accurately timed as we might say on the tweet we put out. They might be a day late sometimes, simply because for every Arse blog out there that has a schedule, there's podcasts like us that don't have that, and we have to work around. And tonight's a prime example. Karl's working, Femi's building his 8th house, John's probably up some drain pipe literally somewhere, but we've all got commitments, and that's what makes it even more amazing that we've managed to hold this together. And there's been some people that have come and gone, and people that are still friendly with us away from the podcast that we would have been introduced to on the podcast. I'm looking at you, Welsh boy, but
we were talking about him pre-pod.
We were.
I do miss having him on.
And a lot of people say, it's like, oh, how do you keep in touch with people? And like Gav alluded to, you do fall out with people, like you genuinely do. And I'll say it, I think I said to you, Danny, in the past, the camaraderie that you and Gimli had in the early days was what drew me in. It was genuine, sort of two mates having a chat. And I know, I say, things happen and people go their own separate ways, and people have different things happen in life, but you still have that to look back on, and it's still cool that you can do that. And so I say, I'm still friends with Jace and a few others that have come and gone. But the great thing is you'll always find new people that are interested, that are keen. Whenever we put the word out to say, oh, transfer deadline day, anyone want to come on? Most people now go, oh, fuck that, we're not doing any business. But obviously that's all changed recently. But yeah, it's a great community, and it's, it really is fun to to tolerate you in the best possible way, Danny, is always fun, and
Thanks.
it's nice that we are just so ad hoc. I think if we had a really polished show, I almost feel like some
kills
of
the fun.
Yeah, some of the spark would go, and
Because sometimes it has been a drudge. The Emery days, it was God, nobody wants to do it, but we kept on doing it. I just looked through the peak COVID, which was probably January 2020 to the summer of 2020. We knocked out 21 shows.
Yeah, which is nuts. And let's not forget as well, this podcast has brought people together. I mean, I would never have thought that I would have got to have met Dom, and I got to meet Jeff, who are literally from countries across the other side of the world. And that's to this day, meeting Jeff especially. Jeff's got his own health concerns at the moment, which might mean that might be his one and only trip to the UK. What an amazing experience it was to have him here. And we speak, as indeed you do, Danny. I speak to Jeff almost every day. It's usually just...
He sent me a 10-minute message the other day, and I replied with a 5-minute message, and we just spent the whole time talking about how registration plates work.
Yeah, man's an absolute legend, and we just talk about.
I messaged Aussie Dom and said, "Would you like to come back on?" He does. We still speak to Shredder.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
only I think. I mean, when my mum passed away, Jason, Mr. Davies, sent me a message, and he was being really lovely about it. So there was. Some hope there may be one day he might come back on again. There's only 2 people from ABW that I don't speak to, Gimli and Venezuelan John. And that's it.
Yeah. And that's life. You're not always going to see eye to eye with everybody. And sometimes you're going to be really good friends with somebody and something's going to happen. And that just stops. But I think it's really cool that we've got to meet some cool people. And I'm actually in the process of chatting to Jeff about going to see him in Canada potentially next summer. So it just shows how things can grow and how you can meet up across the world from different places. It's just so cool. It really is. And having these guys and girls in the chat now, I look down every week. It's the same names here without fail. Sometimes we don't even tell people we're going to do a podcast. We just turn up and they're always there. I'm convinced Danny sends them messages and go, "Come on, please just come on, because we'll look shit if you're not on here." But it's super cool, and everybody's always friendly, and everybody's always a really good chuckle between us all, and it's really good fun. And I think one of the other things I'll wrap up with this is we have genuinely no beef with any other podcast. There's always that little bit of competition, I guess, some friendly, some not so friendly, between YouTube channels or podcasts, and people nicking each other's ideas. And Danny, we won't mention any names, but there's been a few that may just have taken a few things that we might have done, or certainly been one of the first to do in this sphere, made it their own.
The worst example, somebody said to Gimli, "Who do you hate most? Do you hate Hugh Wizzy or Robbie from AFTV? If you had one bullet, which one would you use? Which one would you shoot?" He said, "I'd line them up back to back and shoot a pair of them." You'd think that's the kind of shit people used to say back in the day.
It's
true. People loved it. Yeah, they did.
They did. But that aside, I genuinely have a lot of respect for everybody who does what Gavin and FK do. All the way down to the small podcasts and those that are just starting out, because we all started somewhere. There is, there's genuinely no beef. I'm not a big fan of the fan channels. I will say that myself, but that's just a personal view. And I think everybody has the right to choose who they listen to. And it's really cool that you can have so many different shows, like Loki's put in the chat there, the After Dark shows. They were literally just Danny and a guest talking absolute bollocks.
They're all gone.
But they were, they were of their generation, and I'm pretty sure Gav would back me when if I said, Gav, if I said the show, if I said the character Alf Garnett, you would chuckle, because in our time they were fantastic shows. You couldn't have it now. You can barely get away with Fools and Horses these days. The world has changed. We've all evolved, but you still have those memories. You still enjoyed them for what they were. And I think we've all kind of grown as people as best we can. But there's always a bit of the original us, lurking deep below. But we will always respect any guests we have on and people we speak to, and that's what makes it fun. That's what makes the world go round.
Yeah.
Yes, Demsek says here about the Sunday roast. That's going to come back. Mike says, he isn't even doing his own podcast at the moment. He's a busy man. But eventually we will get back to doing them.
He's
I
too
think
busy
sometimes
losing like 4,000 stone. Like the man looks amazing.
I know it's amazing what he's done. Like Stan says, the good old days before cancel culture. If anyone looks at my Twitter, I say in my profile, and I'm not joking, 121,556 tweets deleted. I keep a track of how many I've deleted because you can't. If people went back and saw some of the shit that I used to, nothing nasty, just a little bit dark, a little bit out of order, a little bit twisted. But you can't do that anymore. It's just it's today's society, and it's not the better for it. Sadly,
no. I mean,
go on.
I actually probably about 2 years ago. So scared of losing my She-War account on Twitter. I actually went through and searched my name for literally every swear word. I mean, if somebody can find
that's a long list.
I know exactly. I mean, I've got a complete potty mouth. I try not to swear on podcasts and stuff these days, but I mean, some of my first tweets were horrendous. C words, F words, W words.
Are you spelling the K and it's okay? That's legal.
Oh, don't, mate. But I just done a search under myself and hopefully got rid of, literally. I mean, you look at my social media now. I just, I can get quite het up about things still, and yeah, and I just kind of use other words. Like I'll use words like lemon. And do you know what I mean? You're a melon or something like that. Do you know what I mean? I'll just use like various fruit words where what I really mean is nasty words beginning with CF and W sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Mm. But you are right. It's cancel culture, unfortunately. Fortunately or unfortunately.
Talking of cancel culture, Chris, do you need to cancel yourself and leave me and Gav to get on with it?
Kind of, yeah.
Well, I'm just going to talk to Gav about the 2013. Go back and reminisce over a few. See, you got time for that, Gav?
Yeah, can you give me 2 minutes? I just need a quick toilet break.
You go and give yourself a.
I'll hang on till Gav's back. Then I'll hang on till Gav's back.
At the end of the show, I've got the index on the Bergkamp Wonderland website. I'm going to go and say thank you to every single person that is on my list. Remember, I haven't updated it this season. I don't think. The last show I updated it to was show 399, and we've recently done show 500. So, but on our channel we've got 1,151 shows. Which one was your favourite?
Oh, the one with the thing with the person and the stuff. That was my best. Yeah, definitely.
I think the best one is the one that you and Holick did together.
Looking
back at the season.
It was me, Holick, and Andrew, wasn't it? Hasblog was on it as well. That's why I put so much effort into it, because it was. Yeah, I think it was before Andrew did his Invincible, because he did a book, didn't he? Was it a book or was it an audio book? I think it was an audio book that Andrew Hasblog did it, and it was all on the Invincibles.
No idea.
I'm pretty sure it was. I think it's an audio book, which he released sort of as a side thing. And myself and Dave went on with him, and that's why we wanted those audio clips to put in, because it took a lot of effort, took a lot of time on your behalf to put together. But yeah, it was good. It was really good, because that is unlikely to ever be done again. Let's be honest.
That's why I thought, should I get a load of people? I mean, like one Christmas we did Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I got people in 35 languages to go and do it all, and that took me a week to organise. Sometimes we get 20, 30,000 views. For ABW, views is nothing. It doesn't matter whether we get 10 or whether we get. If we start getting 100,000 views of a video, make no difference to us. We still wouldn't make any money out of it, because you'd only get maybe £50 or £60 a show out of that. When Jace was hosting the post-game shows, we'd make more than that per show when he was doing that, which is what paid for all the equipment that we've got at the moment. So
if we got that many views, I'm just going to put it on record, we will find a way to make money out of it. I'm just going to say that now.
It doesn't make any difference. We do this because we like having a chat, and that's it. The numbers don't matter at all. We still get 30, 40, 50,000 views on all platforms per month. We're approaching 5 million views on all platforms. We're getting closer to that every day, well, every few weeks. So, but then you look at someone like some of the YouTube people; they'll get that within an hour of their first video going out. So that's why numbers are completely irrelevant for anything.
What bugs me about numbers is, I mean, I'm quite fortunate that I've got a lot of nice, decent people on my my Arsenal page on Facebook, and up until it started dropping off a couple of days ago, and it was a complete record and a complete fluke because a couple of posts that were put up on there went pretty viral. But over a 28-day period, my Facebook had received 2.5 million views. Do you know how much Facebook gave me?
They sent you a bill.
No, what they gave me is anytime I use the word shop or store, they actually sort of more or less delete the bloody post. So or you use a pound sign or something like that. They're so geared up for advertising revenue that they now charge you for people that follow you to see a tweet if you're selling something on it, or on a message if you're selling it, which is really, really a messed up scenario when you think that I've got them 2.5 million people reading their adverts. It just don't make sense. Do you know what I mean? It's
the same as Twitter.
Yeah.
I now have a game with Twitter. I go every time there's someone a promoted advert on there, I go and block the company. I've blocked nearly 3,500 companies on my Twitter, and then you get 5 adverts, and then you get 6 tweets, and you think, what is the point? It's because people aren't spending money anymore, and all these companies are just like with Twitch. Back in the day on Twitch, you'd get maybe one 15-second advert once an hour. I once had one the other day, 9 back-to-back adverts that took 4.5 minutes. And that's as soon as I went in to watch their Twitch show. And it's everyone, and they don't give a damn about the people or the consumer. All they give a damn about is flogging advert space, because we are not the target audience. We are we are the product.
Yeah, I mean my boy, he's oh blimey, he's coming up 8 in a couple of months. And he plays these sort of silly like bubble burst games on his, like he's got like a mobile phone which is just sort of like indoors only. He hasn't actually got a phone number, just so it's linked up to the Wi-Fi so he can play games, and he nicks my tablet so he plays sort of some games on there. The other day I caught him playing with 2 games up. He's sitting there with his phone and my tablet, and he plays one until the advert kicks in and lets the advert play, and he'll be playing the other one. And he does that. He just swaps between the 2 devices so he doesn't have to sit there bored for like a minute whilst his advert goes through. Do you know what I mean? But he's a proper little geek, my boy. He loves these little games, and he sat there with me on all day Sunday from sort of like 8:30 in the morning, explaining to me about this game and about how he collects gems for this game and this, that, and the other, and he's explaining things during these adverts every sort of 10 minutes that they have on these games, and I still have not got a clue about that game. I still won't be able to play it. Do you know what I mean? But he sat there literally for 6 hours on and off telling me about this game. Do you know what I mean? In between sort of like us, doing other bits. But yeah, no, I had a right headache by the end of it.
Do you need to go now, Chris?
Yeah, I'm going to shoot, mate, because I haven't had a proper meal and stuff to do. But we'll be. I'll be back when we wrap up Declan. And
any day now.
So you just give us a shout when you're free, and we'll have a little chat about him.
Or it would be the Xhaka leaving pod. Will be the next one we do, possibly.
Or maybe the 2 together, because they might be announced the same day. Possibly, I have a suspicion that might happen.
Good news and bad news day. You take care, Chris. Speak to you soon, mate.
Good to chat.
You wait there, Gav. Gav, you
Thanks
wait
to
there.
everybody.
Cheers, Chris.
See you later.
Thanks for 9 years.
You're welcome. Here's to 3.5 more.
Hey, cheers. Have you got a go now, Gav?
No, mate. I might have to. Is my volume okay if I speak like this?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, everybody else is sound asleep, mate. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, kids went at 9. She's asleep. I'm cool to have a chat, mate.
Let's have a look back at the 2013 our very own Nicky Wilson is there. Oi, oi, you dirty boy. Wash your hands when you're done. 2013-14 season, we did our first show, as I was saying, the 3rd of July, and our first proper podcast, the 11th of July. And the players that came in that season, Yaya Sanogo from Auxerre cost us 390 grand.
That must have been the one it must have been him I was talking about then.
Matteo Flamini, we got him a free transfer from AC Milan.
Again, that was his second time with us.
And then in the September, we signed a goggly-eyed German-Turkish man from Real Madrid for 42.5 million.
No idea who you mean.
Then we got Sami Ajayi from Charlton Athletic on a free. And we got Matt Macey from Bristol Rovers on a free. And we got in 2 loans. We got Emiliano Viviano, a goalkeeper from Palermo, on loan in September, never played the game. And then we got the legendary Kim Kallstrom on loan at the very last minute of the January transfer window. And then people wonder, Gav, why we were so shit back then. We signed 5 players, of those 5, 2 of them never played for the club. I don't think Matt Macey played for the club. And then the other 2 were on a free transfer.
Ridiculous, mate. Absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, I actually had a bit of a blow up on Twitter about this the other day because obviously the debate is still raging over who's the biggest name and the biggest signing that we've ever done. And, you know, obviously people from a certain age or a certain type of person will always say, look, Ozil was the biggest signing that we'd ever done and the biggest, not the biggest shock, because obviously that was when Campbell turned up. But I mean, I said, I'll be fair with you, I've never really heard of Ozil before he was sort of getting.
Yeah, I saw that, and I think I reply to it and say no, he hadn't.
No, and it was just sort of like people couldn't believe me. And I'm trying to explain to people that who are sort of possibly now in their sort of 30s, and they grew up with, you know, either being indoors with Sky Sports with every single game of football in Spain and Germany live every week, and they grew up playing sort of FIFA computer games. But I was trying to explain to them, well, I was in my sort of like, I was probably about 34, 35 when Ozil made his debut in Germany. And I'm like, the last thing I was doing at a weekend was watching German football, mate. Do you know what I mean? And people sort of couldn't understand that. And I'm saying, well, I'm older than you. You know, if you're 35 to 40 and got a little bit of chat and a half decent fella back then, you weren't bloody doing that at weekends. Do you know what I mean? I certainly weren't. I was in pubs and entertaining and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I just, you know, it's... And the other thing is, with that, is I've only ever really watched the Arsenal. I've never really sort of like watched much other football. That's why I'm absolutely useless at transfer talk and who should we buy. Because I don't watch anyone. So my opinions have just always been solely about Arsenal players and obviously speculating. And it's nice to hear I was right about Sanogo.
It's true, though, when we used to talk about players coming in and stuff, you go, never heard of him. Now, I watch a lot of Italian football. I watch quite a bit of French football because Marseille had a load of ex and current Arsenal players there last season. Not a big fan of Spanish football, but I used to watch some of it, so I knew who he was. Plus, I watched the World Cup and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's some people just concentrate on the one league, and it's easier that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think I watched a couple of Man City games towards the end, hoping they would lose. But I've tried to sit down and watch Man City, but I don't like the style of football. It just seems ultimately too robotic and too perfect too often. And I watched a few
West Ham Europa games. But apart from that, I think I've watched the end of a couple of Tottenham games when they was getting battered just for a laugh, and to see empty stadiums and disappointed players' faces. But that was it really last year. But I don't think I missed, through the use of via living in my villa in Italy. I don't think I missed a minute of any Arsenal game all season.
This season I've not, and I've actually got them all on a hard drive, Gav. Every single league game in chronological order in 1080p HD, and it's a thing of beauty.
You could get arrested for that, Dan.
I mean, I've got pictures of them that I've drawn by hand. That's what I mean. Nothing else. That season, let's have a look at the players that left the club. Fucking hell. Ready? Martin Anga went to Nuremberg. Craig Eastman went to Colchester United. Jordan Winter left. Elton Monteiro, Kyle Ebisilio. Danielson left. Arshavin left. Sanchez Watt, Josh Reese, James Rea, Vito Manone. I am Vito Manone. Very good. Charles Reese Cook, Jermaine Mead, Squillaci, Andre Santos, Philip Roberts, Harachovic, Javinho, Chamak, Bihimotoin, fuck knows, Henderson, Jeffrey, Nico Yanaris, Emmanuel Frimpong, and Nigel Nieta. Now, that is almost an entire generation, as in football generation, which is about 5 years, of young players that Arsene Wenger brought to the club that were an absolute goddamn disaster. Two Swiss players, a Dutch, a Brazilian, an Italian, a Brazilian, a French, an Irish, where's this flag from? Bosnian Herzegovina, two Moroccan players, another Irishman. There's this one. That is a Ghanaian player and a Jamaican player. That's where it was all going wrong, though, wasn't it? That's what used to make us so angry about Wenger, because he'd get all these players in, hoping that a couple of them would end up being gems, and 99% of them weren't, were they?
No, not at all. I mean, old Stevie, Lord Hillwood, he wrote a blog probably around that sort of time, because obviously all the talk was that Wenger had to balance the books, and Wenger had to do this and do that, and he had to sell players every year to make sure we was sort of financially stable. But what Steve went through, he went through the amount of money he wasted by mistakes that he'd made on players, and by selling players cheaply. And he made a very, very valid point about the state of the club back then. Do you know what I mean? It's I can't read these comments. Am I getting pelters?
No, they're just saying they're just talking about Hallstrom and that he nearly bankrupted Bupa.
Yeah, the only player we've ever signed who actually had a broken back and still passed the medical to sign. Crazy, but yeah, no, there was a lot of. You can understand it. I mean, with hindsight now. You look back 10 years, and I can quite clearly, hand on heart, say in hindsight, I wouldn't have said a different fucking word then. I was bang on. He should have gone 10 years ago. But again, like I say, what has changed recently is the fact that the Cronkies have full control of the club. It's looking like a good thing at the moment, but again, with everything, the devil is in the detail. The devil's in the detail of the fact that you don't know how much money they're pumping in, how much money they intend on taking out in the future off the back of that. And at the end of the day, all they're doing is, it's their house. They're painting the walls and putting a nicer bit of furniture in it. And they are charging us top dollar. I mean, 10 years ago, if you'd said, look, I'll be having debates and arguments on Twitter, and the club wouldn't be speaking to me because I'm trying to gain more tickets, or I was trying to gain more tickets for silver members, which against Tottenham next year in the upper tier is £120 per game.
I think Chris was saying the Category B game is that he was looking at 70 quid.
Yes, for one game. And it's, I mean, obviously there is inflation and this, that, and the other that you've got to account for over 10 years. But like I say, I think they've gone a little bit too far. I mean, I couldn't. I've been 2 Category A games at the Emirates. One was against Chelsea, which was 50 quid. And the other one was a midweek Champions League game where I got a last-minute freebie in club level. But like I say, there's no way. I mean, I couldn't sort of justify spending, or I felt ripped off spending 50 quid. And now you're looking at next year, Tottenham, upper tier, 120 quid. It's insane how it's going. And we're actually arguing amongst ourselves to pay that money. And the fact of how many podcasts there are is the fact of just how popular Arsenal are throughout the world.
I do wonder how many podcasts other teams have got. Got a question for you here we've got some other questions later. Pete Colson says, quick question for Gav. How difficult has it been setting up your merch business and how much pushback you have had to put up with from official Arsenal? Now, that could be a podcast on its own, couldn't it?
Yeah, basically. I mean, I started about 9.5, coming up for 10 years this January. I had a bit of change in my eyesight prescription. And through that, and through not being able to work for about a month, I lost my job. And we had a just over 1-year-old baby. We had 50 quid left in the world out of our overdrafts. And one of my, a fella I used to do some promotion for stuff he was doing, he's actually the events coordinator for Islington Boxing Club. And I'd done them a few favours by helping raise the profile for that amongst the wider Arsenal community and this, that and the other. And he said, look, one of my mates has got some She Wore a Yellow Ribbon badge pins. Do you want some? And I think we was just heading into then it was a league cup final, our first final in ages, the one against Birmingham. Anyway, so I bought these 50 badge pins, got a load of yellow ribbon that we had in a box. I cut the yellow ribbon up, put it behind the badge pin, and I sold it for £2.50 plus like a 50p stamp or whatever it was. And that 50 went in about 20 minutes. So I phoned the fella back up, ordered another 50, and it's kind of gone from there. And then people were saying, why don't you do a polo shirt? So I'd done a polo shirt with the old cannon on it. And I phoned up the nearest embroidery shop to my house, or to my flat rather. Irish fellow answered the phone. We got chatting. I told him what I wanted. I said, look, I don't know how many I'm going to sell, blah, blah, blah. And he said, look, don't worry, if you sell 1 or 100, I've got a little embroidering machine in the back of my shop. So I started doing polo shirts. That went so mental that the fellow in his shop had to pass it on to a bigger firm that had sort of like, these machines that can run off 5 at a time. And nearly 9.5 years later, he's like one of my best mates. And, we talk 3 or 4 times a day and constant messaging, and he still does all of my clothing, all of my T-shirts. But yeah, there has been some, the scariest day was, I think I was up and running for about 18 months, 2 years. And suddenly one day, someone had obviously not been too happy with something that I'd said either online or about Arsene Wenger or something. And I had an email from the Premier League lawyers telling me to cease and desist my shop. And I had an email from the Arsenal lawyers telling me to cease and desist my shop. And luckily, the host for my shop is a sort of smaller independent company based, they were originally based at Old Street Roundabout in London. And I sort of got to know the CEO by asking him stupid questions and stuff.
And he sort of said to me, "Oh, I'm going to have to close your shop down, Gav." And I said, "Well, no, you don't." I said, "It's me that's going to get the legal letters. You leave it up. You leave it to me." So these legal emails are going backwards and forwards, and I'm just replying to them, and they're sending me trademark descriptions. I'm saying, well, look, according to the Arsenal website, the current logo was changed because previous logos couldn't be copyrighted, and now you're telling me it's not. It is copyrighted. So we had that. Because of that, Arsenal actually changed the writing about logos and removed the word copyright. And oh bloody hell, what else happened? Yeah, the funniest one was the Premier League lawyer sent me an email, and they would list the products that you had, which they believed was against trademark. Now, one of the trademarks that the club own is the word Gooner. So exactly. So anything to do with Gooner, the club could get them closed down. Anyway, I wrote a very nice email to the Premier League lawyer and said, and included the Arsenal lawyer at the same time, and said, if you ask me to remove the word Gooner from any of my merchandise, I will see you in court. I will represent myself, and I'll be bringing the first Gooner with me. I said, and I've got documentation that goes back, a video recording that will go back long before that. You copyrighted the word, which will back up my case, and I'll win. Anyway, literally it must have been about a day later, the Arsenal lawyer emailed us both and said to the Premier League, please never contact She-War ever again. And that was the end of that. But there's been some run-ins, do you know what I mean? But it's all fun and games.
I was laughing loudly at that. I'm eating Doritos because that's all I've had to eat today. That's I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Fucks trying to copyright the word Gooner. I bet you go and fuck yourselves.
Yeah, no,
I've got
exactly.
A couple of questions for you. People are talking about did you go to the Paul Merson testimonial where we beat an Arsenal 11? We had Hoddle and Gaza playing for Arsenal. I think the game ended 8-5. I was there.
I didn't used to go testimonials back then, mate. To be honest with you.
The worst one I ever went to was both for Tony Adams's. Absolutely shameful.
Oh, I went Paul Davis. I went Paul Davis's testimonial.
Our very own Stan the Man says, question for Gav. What advice would you give to someone thinking about starting an online store? Because Stan has been dabbling and he has his own Etsy thing. I'm sure Stan will put it. The Gooner Shack, all one word. That is the one that Stan is doing. And he's got some very nice stuff on there. So what advice would you give him? Don't, because you need the money.
yeah, basically, get off my turf, mate. No, I mean, I help, I promote other shops which do stuff that I don't do, like Ruth Beck, who I think is absolutely wonderful. Some of the stuff and the paintings that she does and drawings, not only of Arsenal stuff, but also local Islington landmarks and things. I'm going to actually contact her about my second favourite clock, which is at Marketplace, just off Holloway Road and Caledonian Road. Market Way. Anyway, advice. See, I had this argument I have this argument quite often with Ken, and Ken will come up with a design idea, and they'll put the design idea to me. Now, if I don't like it, I won't use it. And they'll say, well, you haven't put a new design up for 3 weeks. And I went, well, I can't think of anything decent to put up. So the first thing is only do stuff. Don't put up stuff that you think just because you think this might sell. Put up stuff that either you like the design of, or try and think of things that other people haven't done. Try and twist things. And just have fun with it. Do you know what I mean? All I've ever really done. I mean, obviously, I'm blessed by the fact that because of how I've been on social media over the years, I've got over 105,000 followers on the free platforms that I use. So it's very easy for me to direct people, and I've got I think there's almost 4,500 people on my mail shots when I do them. But yeah, just put up stuff that you like, and if you like it and it's decent Arsenal stuff, and enough people see it, then enough people are going to buy it.
Loki asks, so can you use old badges?
On the advice of my solicitor, I exercise my right to silence. No, legally, no. If you was to use, if you go on the Arsenal, I mean, you can go onto the government website, and it will give you every single trademark Arsenal own, and it will give you everything that the trademark covers, like, for example, books, socks, videos, magazines. I mean, legally, the Arsenal could close down the Gooner fanzine to say you're not allowed to use the word Gooner and close them down. So yeah, technically and legally, you can't use any of the old logos. But hundreds of people do. Hundreds of people make different bits and different stuff using old logos. It's just that when I do it, I get caught because obviously they've been looking at me over the years, really.
Just finishing off the laughs of my crisps. Scumbags. I have nothing to eat. I might nip in the kitchen and have a tin of tuna later. Be a bit extravagant. Pete Coulson has a question for us. For you all, why do you still do it all? Mine is because I've got fuck all else to do with my time. Occasionally, my mum would nip round a couple of times a week, and then I'd have to arrange shows around that, but that doesn't happen anymore. Sean has been at uni did 4 years at uni, got a part masters, and then lived up there for another year late after. And now my mum left her a load of money, so she's going to buy a fucking house up there. Nice one, mother. So she's going to, because for 90 grand up there, you can get a 3-bedroom semi-detached house. Roughly where she lives. So she's been looking at spending a lot of money and staying up there. So yeah, on a day-to-day basis, I see nobody. Occasionally, Sean's mum will pop round. Occasionally, Sexy Frank will pop round, and maybe Big Bob. But like at the moment, George and Sean's mum, it's called George, and Sean are going to Turkey for 10 days on Wednesday.
Oh, no.
So I will probably not see another human being for 10 days because I can't go out on my own anymore because the old arthritis and means I can't move properly. Poor old me. I know there's a lot of people worse off, but I used to be able to get dressed and go out on my own, but now I can't do that. So yeah, I'll just be sitting. But I've got plenty of money. I've got a lovely house. I've got a nice front garden and back garden. I've got about 10 people I can ring if I need anything. I've got 3 nice cats and 1 arsehole. She's sat there now, rotting from the inside. Oh, she's laying there next to the heater. Yeah, so that's the reason I do it. It's because I have got nothing else to do with my time apart from sleep. Why do you keep doing it?
Well, I've done it tonight because you asked me. The last podcast I did was because you asked me.
We were meant to be doing them more regularly. We will start doing them more regularly, but for both of us,
yeah, I mean,
a little bit hectic lately.
Yes, I mean, obviously going forwards and into next season, I'd love to do more with you. Do you know what I mean? Even if
It's fire, yeah.
Oh yeah, till you sack me for the third time.
Looking back at that clip from you from 10 years ago, no wonder you keep getting me in trouble. You scumbag.
Yeah, no, I mean I'm over 50 now, Dan. Do you know what I mean?
We're a combined age of over 100. Fuck's sake.
Oh no, just 2 old bastards. But yeah, no, I think like when we started doing it, I was extremely passionate about the way the club was being run and the way, by the board at the time, by the split shareholder board, which slowly dwindled down. There could be only one, and but yeah, I was extremely critical of the board. I was extremely critical about Wenger.
Did you ever think we'd turn it around in the way that Arteta has? I didn't. I thought it would have done forever.
I'll be honest with you. I always, when Wenger went, I said it because obviously, you know, it's things change now, and it's less of my mates are on social media and more in group chats and private chats on WhatsApp these days. But I mean, I said to like everybody when it was fine. I mean, when it was announced that Wenger was sacked, because he was sacked.
I couldn't have given 2 fucks about him going. It was 10 years too late for me.
Oh yeah, but I mean, basically, everybody in my group chat was celebrating. I mean, like, there was voice chats of people screaming their house down and screaming streets down and bibbing their horn in cars and everything. It was like a celebration. And I said, whoever, and that, the chat, obviously, once everyone calmed down, is who's
make
next.
It clear there's two eras to Wenger. First 10 years, second 10 years. First 10 years, delighted. Couldn't have done any better. Second 10 years is what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Highbury Wenger under Dean.
Yeah.
And we've got Emirates Wenger under Gazidis. And that's the period. Look, we really went wonky. I mean, I would still love to know what Ivan Gazidis actually did all these years later. But yeah, no, I always, like I say, when it was announced that Wenger was leaving or sacked or whatever, whatever way you want to spin it, I always said whoever comes in next is going to fail.
Yep, happened under Liverpool after Bob Paisley left. It happened at Man United after Alex Ferguson left, and it happened at Arsenal under Wenger.
Yeah, and I said
it will happen to Man City under Pep, and it will never happen to Spurs, no matter who's in charge.
Yeah, so I mean, Arteta, I was sort of.
I didn't want him.
No, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I followed and liked him as a player.
Yeah.
I know, obviously,
sacrificed his career for Arsenal. Played in a position that meant he got a good kick in every game, and that wasn't his position, and that's why he got the injuries, and that's why, as a captain, he didn't play most of his last season because Wenger put him in position. You wouldn't put Andre Arshavin in that position. You wouldn't have put Dennis Bergkamp in that position. Not that he's on the skill level of either of those two, but he wasn't a fucking defensive midfielder. Just he had the intelligence to read the game and do quite a good job there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I used to sort of watch. I saw him play live a couple of times for Glasgow Rangers, and I used to watch his goals for Everton. And because I mean, on that, when I was originally talking about Arse Online, the original message board, that was on a network called Rivals Network, who had different message boards for every single different club. And the Everton one was very, very busy. So we sort of like, a couple of my mates are still good mates with some of the Everton supporters. So we used to sort of take an interest in the Everton games as well, some people. And so it was well known then that Arteta was a hell of a player. But we just got him up. His legs had gone. Wenger played him in the wrong position because his legs had gone. He was supposed to come in as an attacking midfielder to replace Fabregas when Fabregas engineered his move to Barcelona, which was going to happen one day. We all knew that. But like I say, I didn't like Arteta as a player, how he was playing at Arsenal. I think I was disappointed because I was a little bit of a fan of his before we got him.
He was a maestro at Rangers and then still pretty bloody good at Everton.
Oh, God, yeah. You see some of his free kicks he used to chuck away for Everton. Absolute class. But so I was sort of, when he took over, after Emery, who I tried my best to warm to him, I tried my best to give him like the benefit of the doubt and back him and support him. And when Arteta come in and his first couple of press conferences, I just got him straight away. And obviously that was an absolute masterstroke, them doing that documentary. Whatever they got paid for it, for doing that all or nothing documentary, they should give them the money back, because that has done absolute wonders for players like Xhaka and understanding Arteta. I mean, I think Arteta I think he's a little bit crazy in some aspects. I mean, he comes out with some sort of different analogy every single, and different sort of
that stuff on the drawing board.
Yeah, I mean blimey, hell. I mean,
he's almost making work for you, isn't he, with the pictures that he's drawing?
Well, that picture was
the three characters.
With them three characters, we chucked it on a T-shirt, and it went so mental. It took me 3 days to pack them.
Right, I remember talking to you, and I've got something like about 150 packets to do tonight.
Oh God, yeah. No, I mean, literally, my whole of my front room was covered in these T-shirts. And bearing in mind, look, the labels have been done for me. I'm sitting in front of a laptop, and all I've got to do is pick up small, medium, large, extra large, blah blah blah, and then click 2-3 buttons and then send. Yeah, I think it took me 3 days to pack them all, and they went all around the world. I think I sent like a dozen to South Korea.
Yeah, you had that thing, didn't you? You had that interactive map where you'd sent stuff.
Yeah, it was absolute bonkers. But yeah, I mean, he comes out with like different things before each game to sort of.
The "You'll Never Walk Alone" music.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, that was a nightmare. But
I thought that was right. Stupid idea. Worked though, didn't it?
Yeah, we got battered. No, we lost. We lost about 3-0.
Oh, well, never mind him.
But yeah, no.
I've still not watched the last episode.
He's a very, very clever man. When Pep turns around and says, he's a monster already. He is. He's an absolute monster. Once Rice comes in, it's gonna be crazy next year. I think we're gonna see I can see at some stages next year Ben White popping up at left wing. While Saka's the defensive midfielder. I think we're gonna sort of go for this complete weird, almost modern version of the Ajax Total Football, where players are just completely interacting and exchanging, and he runs classes on where you should be on the pitch when we've got the ball, when the opponent's got the ball, when we're going forwards, when we're winning, we're losing. He thinks of every single different scenario for every single moment that could happen in a game. And that's why he's sort of like his first year, all you saw him was shouting and pointing at players. Do you know what I mean? And Declan Rice, the reason Arteta wanted him and wants him so badly is Declan Rice has got one hell of a football brain on him as well. And you can tell by the players that Arteta's buying. He's not just. I mean, you can see they've all at a certain age with a certain amount of experience, which is down to sort of how the Cronkies want to run the club as a business. Because in 3 or 4 years' time, players like Saka, Martinelli, you get decent bids in, they're getting sold, mate. Do you know what I mean? But it's Arteta how he profiles players. He wants intelligent players. He wants players that can learn, follow instructions, and think and be flexible at the same time. He's just absolutely brilliant, the fella.
He definitely is good, and he's only going to get better. Like I always say, you've got the arc. You've got 0 to 10, then the other side of the arc, 10 down to 0. We're only about 4, maybe 5 on the upswing of the arc. It's so much more to come in. Just quickly on we're singing about praises of Arteta and how good he is. What do you make of all the morons on Twitter having a go at Edu for having the barbecue? But this is now 4 solid transfer windows in a row, getting rid of players he doesn't want, bringing in the players we do want, surprising us with good deals. What is up with these morons who keep going, I want Edu sacked?
I've no idea, mate. I've really, really no idea. Edu's now in a position where he can put stuff up on Instagram, or his wife or his son, and he's trolling them. He's almost trolling them, saying, look, I'm just relaxing and chilling out.
when you know he's very, very hard working. Apparently, in his office, he's got 3 boards about transfers and about players in and out. One for the first team, one for the youth team, and one for the ladies team. And he's working simultaneously on all of those. Obviously, there's other people that deal with the negotiations at the club, like Tim Lewis and some other fella whose surname sounds and looks like garlic. But I think he does a cracking job, and it's so nice that we've got a dude who was at Highbury and who got it. He got the back end of the traditional Arsenal way of doing things, and we've got Saka with his German upbringing. And I tell you what, do you remember we done a podcast with a German journalist many years ago? I think it might have just been me, you, and him.
Got Honigstein.
That's the one. And he was talking. Do you remember he said about German youth players when they get their first contract?
Yeah.
They're not going out and buying the BMW and the Porsche.
Nope, I don't remember. Tell us a story.
They were going out and buying 5-year-old Volkswagen Golfs, and he said like the way that the youth players there, they're more humble and they want to fight for everything they got more than the youth players over here who can be on 50 grand a week before they've even kicked a ball.
Yeah, I mean, there was that one, wasn't there, like Craig Eastman or someone like that was saying, I'm on 40 grand a week. I don't care if I have a football career. That was the gist of it, not word for word before anyone shouts at me.
Yeah, I mean, loads of them over the years, but the fact that when Saka was announced as being the head of the youth setup, I remember that conversation that me, you, and that journalist had about German academies. And I was just absolutely delighted. Look, we've got not only Saka, who played for the club, but also somebody who would bring that German mentality to our young players about making sure they get a good education, about making sure they're decent people and they're humble and they're hardworking. And I think with those 3, Adu, Arteta and Mertesacker, I wouldn't swap any of them out for anybody. Absolutely anybody, I promise you.
Because remember, we used to say all the time, we need Arsenal players at the club in the higher echelons of making decisions. And we've got that now. We've got an ex-Arsenal player as manager. We've got an ex-Arsenal player running the academy. We've got another ex-Arsenal player being manager of the under-18s. We've got ex-Arsenal players popping up all over the place as coaches and other ex-Arsenal players coming back to help do their badges. We've got what we've always wanted. And look, the club are doing wonders. Can we take the credit for that?
I think we should, Dan. I mean, we were saying this 10 years ago. And obviously Stevie Hill would as well. He was saying all that 10 years ago. There's just not enough. After David Dean went, it just seemed like there was an exodus of proper Arsenal people in the playing side. And now we've actually got the reverse, where the playing side is all very, very much ex-Arsenal, and they've embraced our traditions. And they're embracing more and more our old logos and stuff. But the customer service, the people in charge of membership, the people that deal with ticketing, none of them have got a clue. Because during COVID, all of the time served Arsenal supporters who worked at the club, they were all given retirement. So, like I say, so now when you phone up Arsenal box office or something like that, you're getting a lot of young people, and good luck to them, young local people earning and working hard, which I've got the utmost respect for. But the people that run the ticket and marketing, they haven't got a clue. They haven't got a clue about Arsenal. Do you know what I mean? Putting us in bloody raffles to buy a ticket and stuff like that. It's almost the reverse. It's almost the reverse. Before we had a brilliant set of Arsenal people running the ticketing and the marketing, the ticket and the membership in, and we had non-Arsenal people running the football side of things. It's now flipped 50-50. It's now flipped the other way around.
I am listening. My mouse has decided to stop working while I was looking at something else. Yeah, I see all the tweets all the time with you and people talking about how bad it is at the club with them. It's always going to happen though, because you're just going to get people that are going to come in there and be. You don't have to have an association with the club, and like you're saying, they got rid of Gunnosaurus Rex. That just sums up the entire club at that time, getting rid of so many people. And during COVID, they just went, "Oh, all of you lot that have been here for years, go on, the lot of you, bugger off."
To be fair, I mean, like I say, I know. Obviously, there's Debs who's on. Who used to be at Arsenal for years and years. She used to be sort of like in charge of the junior gunners when I was actually a junior gunner back in the 80s. I speak to her every now and on Twitter. And there was a lady called Sue Connolly who was at the club for years.
I remember her.
I've actually got her autograph because she signed my 1989, 88 to 89 away travel club membership thing. And so you had to turn up with a photo and with a bit of proof of address, and she would staple your photo to this bit of card, and that would entitle you to buy an away ticket for that season, and use the special trains that were still running then. But yeah, no, I mean, people like that got retirement off, but to be fair, a lot of them were probably only a year or two away from retiring anyway. So to get a bit of a lump payoff done them a favour in that respect. But the people they've replaced them with, like I say, people that have worked selling tickets at horse racing and stuff like that in the past, and it just don't make sense the way the Silvers were dealt with last year by the fact that they dramatically cut the allocation, then blamed it on demand. And then it snowballed because people couldn't get a ticket, so people were more anxious to get a ticket. And it just created, and obviously with the team doing well, it just created the perfect storm on tickets last year. And out of that, they've come out with this raffle scenario where for the first game of the season, you enter the ballot. You've got by, I think, 1 o'clock Monday to enter a ballot. You type in your card details, and all you earn, say for example, you're putting in for 2 tickets versus Forest, yeah?
Yeah.
The only thing you know is the maximum that you'll pay. That's the only thing you know. You could get lower tier, you could get upper tier, you could be Clock End, you could be North Bank, you could be anywhere. You can't even, if you win the raffle, the club tell you how much you've got to pay, which you've got 24 hours to, which they'll take the money directly off your card. If your card declines, you lose your ticket. And if but they can. The problem with it is it's been, because it's non-football people that have decided these rules and regulations. You're at a situation where a 60-year-old fella who wants to go to a game of football, sit down for the majority of it, stand up when the action's down that end, or stand up when there's a goal, and he still likes to sing every now and then. But like I say, he doesn't want to be on his feet for the whole 90 minutes. He could end up one row behind Ashburton Army.
That's going to be a little bit noisy.
Yeah, exactly. And the other flip side of that is you could have like a load of 21 and 22-year-olds who want to stand as close to Ashburton Army to help with the atmosphere, and they could be like row 26 up in the gods. And like I say, it's just every time they, it's just basically proof that the people that are running the tickets and the membership aren't Arsenal people and aren't really football people, because they just don't get it. They don't get you people like to stand or sit in a specific area. I mean, like I say, Dan, if you go back to your times at Highbury, and you can tell me exactly how many games you went at Highbury.
I can do. Carry on talking.
You would like to be in the same spot every game.
I used to get the hump if I wasn't in the same spot every time, right on the corner.
Yeah, by the corner flag, right? And it's the same with, when I used to go in the clock end, I had this little spot where I wanted to be, which was just in front of a crash barrier, behind the goal, and I was the right height to see over the goal, so I could see the North Bank goal.
328 games at Highbury, I think. No, 320. And
the majority of which in the same spot.
Yeah.
So how can
no one else wanted to sit where I sat because it was right next to the corner flag.
A fair one. But you get my point. Football fans of traditionally they like to sit or stand in the same spot.
Of comfort, of habit.
Oh, here's one, right? I went one game with, I can't even remember, I think it was a League Cup game. And we got allocated, and when I was buying the tickets, we wanted 4. And the only... Oh, there you go.
That's where I sat. There's me and some French bloke, I don't know his name. I sat there all the time, apart from the last game ever at the Emirates, because there's some twat sat there. So I sat right near the front. Which I didn't want to.
Yeah, and I remember, like I said, the creature of habit thing. I went one League Cup game, and it was like there was 4 of us, and I got 3 together. Then there was a seat. Then there was a spare one. Then there was a seat, and then there was our next ticket. So we had sort of one person sitting between the 4 of us. I said, "Look, don't worry. When we get there, we'll just say to the person, can you shift over a seat so us 4 can sit together?" And there's this woman who must have been about like early 60s. And we've all walked in, we've all sat by our seats. And I said to her, "Look, is there any chance you can swap with my mate so we're all together?" And she went, "This is my seat." I went, "Yeah, no, I know it is." I said, "But, we've paid for the seat next year. Can you just swap one over?" She went, "No, this is my seat." And she refused to move one seat then. Right? So 4 mates could sit together.
She was a gooner.
Yeah, season ticket holder. And that's like I say, if you said that,
in the old days, you'd have been whoever it was giving them a slap to fucking move.
Well, it was a 60-year-old woman then, but
maybe not. Well, in the old days, she would have been 30, so it'd have been allowed.
Yeah, no, fair one. But that's the point. The people that run the ticket inside and membership side of the club, they wouldn't believe that actually happened. They wouldn't believe that people are such creatures of habit. They like, that block. They like that row. They like a particular, place to stand and watch their football. But there you go. It's modern football, mate. They think we can just pay them 120 quid and sit where they tell us to.
Pete Coulson. First of all, Nick, our sugar daddy, has stuffed some money down my pants via PayPal, which means YouTube don't get any of their grubby, dirty hands on it. Thank you very much, Nick, as usual. I mean, Nick, not Nick. Phil. Did I say Nick? Those two, because they're both from Norwich. Getting confused. Phil, him, there. He gave us some money via PayPal.
Oh,
cheers,
lovely.
Nick.
Thank you.
Cheers, love. Very kind. Now, where was I on to? Pete. Ticketing is the biggest problem at Arsenal right now. I've been a silver member forever and cannot get tickets at all. I can get extortionate ticket for every game via the scalpers, which is very annoying. And Loki says, have you rang Loki yet?
I haven't, no, sorry. I will do.
I know. Loki says, you stand near me, Gav. Did you burn my shirt with a fag? Probably, because he's a very bad man.
Well, I mean, you go back to the early 90s, it wasn't cigarettes we were smoking in the club end.
Crack pipe. Arsino Wonga says, I've been unable to go to the Emirates because of my depression and anxiety. It stops me from going out anywhere and being able to enjoy myself freely. But one day I will go and watch us slap someone. Ecstasy. That's what you need to do, because there was a bloke and has PTSD in the American Army, and he has now set up clinics where he gives people controlled, don't just go and get it off some bloke on the corner, controlled amounts of ecstasy, which is MDMA. And it is curing people of their PTSD, of people who've seen stuff, their friends blown up within 1 or 2 sessions.
That's where it comes from. That's where it comes from, then.
What?
That's one of the early usages of it. No, that was LSD, wasn't it?
Yeah, LSD was. Yes. Stan says he's like, don't do drugs, people. It's wrong. Stan says his last game was 4-2 v the Spuds on his 50th birthday. Cost 300 quid for a pair of tickets.
Ooh, ouch.
Phil says no worries. I ain't from Norwich. Most of my life was. Oh yeah, he's not. He just lives in Norwich. Yes, we did have some other questions. Sean says, if you're still here, Sean, question about what do you think of AFTV? Well, I think what Robbie has done is amazing, and if anybody had the opportunity to go and do what he's done, you would go and do it to make that amount of money. What do you think?
I would rather not discuss him, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, you have to admit that he has done well.
Yeah, I mean, he. I mean, I believe it or not, when he was first up and running, he was messaging me and he was phoning me to see whether or not he could get his cameras and see whether he could interview people who were doing like the black scarf stuff when we was protesting against the ticket prices going up and how the club was run, etc. And he did interview a couple of friends of mine. He did record a protest march that we did. Look, it was, I don't know, I think 4,000 odd were on, which is the only real sort of footage of it. But his intention from day one was to find controversial subjects and controversial figures in which to engage people's content, much like how TalkSport will come up with a subject like, if Arteta doesn't win the league this year, we should sack him.
All them 50p's from angry people texting in.
Exactly. And that's basically how Robbie set up Arsenal Fan TV, which is why it sort of irks some people, because he's actually used it initially to create diversion and create controversial so-called characters. But like I say, from a business perspective, the Luton fans done really well.
Must be delighted they're back in the Premier League. And I hope this season, Luton, make a prediction, they're going to be the first Premier League side to concede 10 goals, hopefully at our hands, make up for the 1988 League Cup final. They are going to go down with the least number of goals, the most number of goals conceded, and the least number of points. They are going to get smashed every week, week in, week out, because they are barely a Championship side, let alone a Premier League side. And I hate Luton the place, I hate Luton the club, and I hate everything about them because of the 1988 League Cup final. My first League Cup final and lost 3-2. And I hate Danny Wilson and the Steen brothers. They can all get fucked.
And plastic pitches and membership cards and banning away fans. There's a lot to dislike the history of Luton about.
Going back to that first season, I just had a look. Our line-up that season, Chesney in goal, Sanya at right back, and then at left back was Kieran Gibbs, who was recently just left. I think he's just retired. He was playing in the MLS. I think he's retired to do commentating. I'm sure that's what it said. Then the left wing would have been Santi Cazorla. It was his first season. And then after that, he moved in. So Santi on the left, Rosicky on the right. And then the centre-backs were Mertesacker and Koscielny. Big Giroud up front. And then you had a combination of Mikel in the holding position. And then you had a combination of Flamini, Ozil, Wilshere and Ramsey in the centre of the pitch, depending on what formation we were playing. So some decent players there.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, that the problem with that team is that we had about 6 or 7 quality midfielders who all played a similar way and all wanted to play in the middle of the pitch.
These little dwarfs like Barcelona.
Yeah, I mean, he did do that, didn't he? He went to sort of like small, technical, fast players, but the problem was they was just getting bullied and kicked off the pitch. And, Wenger played Aaron Ramsey a lot of right wing. Do you remember that?
Oh, that never worked.
Oh, never once worked.
trying to fit them all in.
Yeah, exactly. He overplayed Jack Wilshere when he was too young, and it was obviously, he was overstretching too much and getting caught too much and getting too many injuries that way. Obviously off the back of what happened to his foot when he was his ankle anyway. But it wasn't a very balanced squad. It was
tippy-tappy.
Tippy-tappy. Yeah, it was all tippy-tappy around the outside and no deep penetration, man.
But had some decent players. All we needed was a really good defensive midfielder. Because remember, it was Jan and Vieira. Finally, he's been let go by his club today, so you never know, he might be coming. But then we had other players at the club at the time, like Lucas Podolski. Never used him properly. Thomas Vermaelen, great player. Bentner, never made the most of him. Theo Walcott, Serge Gnabry that season played 15 games, all as a sub, no doubt.
Yeah.
It just could never get a tune out of that side. I mean, Bellerin, that was his breakout season, I think they call it. But it was just annoying. And then looking at some of the results that season, where
it was the middle of the pitch, the middle of the pitch, and I don't understand. And I didn't really like. I didn't really ever rate Koscielny. Mertesacker on his day, he always had a bit of a rick in him. But Mertesacker was always quite steady, and you knew what you was getting with Koscielny. Yeah, no, I never really warmed to him. I didn't warm to a lot of them players, if I'm being honest.
But first game of the season at home, Aston Villa, not a good club. Benteke scores a couple of goals. We score after Giroud after 6 minutes, Koscielny off after 67, and then we end up losing 3-1. Started the first game of the season 18th, 8th, 4th, 2nd. And then we were first from game number 5, which is the 22nd of September, until game number 24. So the 22nd of September until the 2nd of February, we were top for every week other than one. And that included a 6-3 loss at Man City. We were top for all those weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So much hope. And then towards the end of the season, did our usual, shit the bed. We had a run of 1 win in 6 games.
Oh.
And then we went from first all the way down to 4th. And then that's where we finished. And then when the pressure was off, end of the season, 5 wins in a row. But we did beat Karl in the FA Cup final. So, And we got knocked out by Bayern Munich in the Champions League. 2-0 at home. We drew 1-1 away. So that's how they beat us. Hopefully my mouse will have charged up enough by now. Don't be turn yourself off.
Bear with me, I'm taking tablets before I forget.
Oh, jolly good. So, yes. What else are people saying in the chat? Someone eating an onion.
Is there many people still 2 hours later still listening?
There's 24 of them. And I think there's a couple on Twitch. And what else is there? I'm gonna mute you until you. That's me. I've muted myself for fuck's sake. Don't need to do that.
I'll mute myself. Hold on.
All right. What else have we got there? Arsenio Wonga says, Maka, yeah, very true. Technology is amazing now. Shame society is backwards. It certainly is. Phil says, to be frank, Gav, our defence was ropey for years till Gabriel turned up. Mike Hertz, he is there. Hold on. There we go. A little bit of Mexican up there for the fake Mexican. I'll just leave now. Gav doesn't like plastic American supporters like me. Very, very wise. Very true. Best you very bad man, Mr. Hertz.
Oh, naughty.
Phil Matt says, I love streaming Wonga.
I don't get how that was over a comment that I made about an American fella who ran an Arsenal YouTube.
Wasn't he crying, that one?
Come over for his first game and was crying, and everyone saying, "Oh, this was wonderful," but it was just like a tremendous amount of acting by the fella, and I thought it's weird. I mean, like I say, I wouldn't
religiously. I've got nothing against anybody, religiously following Arsenal, but it just seemed a bit weird that somebody's doing a podcast and a YouTube channel to try and earn money, and they're acting about their first ever game. It was just sort of like, anybody can write about the game, the players. I do feel you see the game slightly differently if you're there than if you're watching on TV.
Yeah.
Because obviously we only get sort of like a certain view of the game. You're not seeing sort of like the whole pitch all the time. Like I say, I kind of respect when I do them after show things, when there's people on there that just got back from the game, and they're talking about things. I sort of listen, because you just don't see everything on the TV. You don't see the positions, and you don't see runs certain players are making that don't get picked up on, or certain covering they do, or the fact that the reason why they look at a position was because they were trying to get in an advanced position, and it was the ball, 2 or 3 balls before that screwed them up and made them look bad. Do you know what I mean? You can get a completely different perspective, and I think if you've never really watched a lot of live games in grounds, I don't think you kind of grasp that. I could be wrong. It's just my opinion.
No, I agree with you. If you had a head cam, and then and they videoed it, and then you had it side by side for what you're looking at during the game compared to what they're showing on the TV at the game, it's not the same thing. It's not even close.
No. I mean, you go back to the standing days, Dan, for myself, and after the goal went in, it all sort of like, and the singing sort of calmed down a bit. Everyone's going quiet to hear the announcement to find out who scored. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes, like, especially obviously, when I was a teenager, I didn't sort of sprout up to my lofty 5'9" until I was about 18, 19. So, do you know what I mean? When I was sort of 15, 16, I was, 5'2", 5'3" sort of thing. So I didn't really see a great deal sometimes. But it's like I say, just different perspectives. But I think it would be interesting to do. I think you can do it on one of the Sky channels, is actually watch a game from a certain angle and just watch as if you were sort of sitting in, like, the clock end up our first row or something. Do you know what I mean? So that you get a perspective of the whole pitch and what's going on with all 22 players at the same time. And you just see a different game.
You probably would. Well, we've been going for 2.5 hours.
Fucking hell.
And I think that'll do us. So that first season, we ended up 4th, won the FA Cup. Not too shonky at all. Had a couple of really decent results that season. I'm going to go and had some shockers. We beat Spurs 1-0 at home. And what else was there? Where we beat Liverpool 2-0 at home, which was good. And we got 6-3 at Man City, which is fucking horrendous. Where else? What other ones have we got here? Man United at home 0-0. Then Spurs away 1-0. So there you go. Beat Spurs at home and away as usual. I think that was Wenger's 1000th game. Get my teeth in. And he lost 6-0 at Chelsea. I think this was the game, was it? And Gibbs got sent off, and Eto'o. I mean, they were 3-0 up after 17 minutes. I think that was the sounds of the game.
Was it the game that season when Gibbs got sent off instead of Oxlade-Chamberlain?
Man, Gibbs did get sent off. Yeah. It was Wenger's 1000th game. I mean, that just summed up how he was as a manager at that time. The Southend game, and you get absolutely smashed, and Andre Mariner was the manager. And then the FA Cup run beat Spurs 2-0 again. So beating Spurs 3 times in the season. I mean, that'll do me. And Europe was an absolute nightmare. Finished second in our group on goal difference from bloody Napoli. I've got the hiccups. I don't know why. Marseille lost all 6 of their group games. And then we got a bit knocked out by Bayern Munich. And Arsenal player of the month, Ramsey, Walcott, Santi, Ox, Rosicky Podolski, and he got manager of the month in September, and Ramsey got player of the month in September, which is and then we fall apart towards. And where did we get in the League Cup? Oh, the League Cup knocked out by Chelsea. So there you go.
What a season!
It was, but it's, we're in a very good place now, and I'm very much looking forward to next season. So I don't know if you want to hang around for this. I'm just going to say a thank you. I'm going to name every person who's ever been on the podcast, because you never know, people might listen all the way to the end and then get their names said. So do you want to stay here while I list? While I say, hello, I don't know, list all their names.
I'll be completely honest with you, Dan. I've been laying flat out with the blanket over me on the sofa for exactly 2.5 hours now.
And how have you not fallen asleep?
It's your dulcet tones, isn't it? No, I think it might have something to do with about 7 or 8 cups of coffee today.
Nice.
But yeah. But so like I say,
pointed out that my mic was a little bit further away because I was charging the mouse and I got a very short charging lead. Go on.
But yes, no, I will stay to listen to all of the esteemed guests.
Oh, okie dokie then. Right, so here we go. People, thank you very much for listening. If you're going to leave now, then leave. And it's been fun. It's been a great 10 years. I'm not sure I'll make it another 10 years because by then I will be 62 years old. And who wants to listen to a 62-year-old talk about football? But it'd be interesting to see where I am in 10 years' time.
You'll still be going, Dan. Well done on 10 years, mate. Very, very well done. I'm proud of you, mate.
Oh, and thank you very much for encouraging us to do this because it was good fun at Steve's Ball Collective, but it went all a little bit shitty and you decided to come along with us in our new venture. And 1,152 shows later, we're still here. So thank you very much, everybody. This has been a Bergkamp Wonderland. We will see you next for either a Xhaka or a Rice podcast. So feel free to turn off now, unless you want to hear your own name, because you've been a part of this podcast. And I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to list all the names as it is on the podcast. First of all, Steve Lord Hillwood and Dave Goonaholic. They're the first two on our list, and we miss them dearly. Then we've got a list of... hold on. Do you want to say something about those two? Quite fittingly.
Yeah, no, God bless them both. Do you know what I mean? Both very, very decent human beings and very, very knowledgeable gooners who are a massive, massive loss to their families and a massive loss to all their friends.
And they are now taking the plaques again, orders for the plaques outside the Emirates, and we've got the money. We raised the money about 3 years ago. Betty, no. About 3 years ago, but because of lockdown, they stopped doing it. They sneakily started doing it again in March.
Okay.
So, yeah, and they didn't, nobody told me. And yeah, so I've got the money and I'm going to email them. I've emailed them and I said, here's the link. So I'm going to go there. Dave Goonaholic and Steve Lord Hillwood. I've spoke to their families. I've got what is going to be on the big plaques and hopefully they'll be next to each other and we'll be getting that sorted very soon. So
well done, mate. Well done.
Right. Ex-Arsenal players who have been on the show. Dave Hillier, Rami Shaban, Jimmy Carter, Anders Limpar, Perry Groves, Adrian Clark, Jay Bothroyd, Omar Rizza, and super Kevin Campbell. All of these people, if you go to bergkampwonderland.co.uk, click on index, and it will tell you the person's name and what show they are on, but I haven't hyperlinked it because that would take forever. Famous Arsenal fans, Rob Beckett, Matt Lucas, Luke Kempner, and Shovel. Yeah,
I love Shovel. I spoke to him last week for 20 minutes on the phone.
Good. Lovely bloke. He was really interesting.
Bloke. Yeah, no, he's a very, very wise man and a very, very good company on the phone. And he had his... I listened to the Rob Beckett podcast on Parents in Hell.
Yes.
Which is brilliant because obviously, I can sort of empathise with what they're going through with kids, and they have this thing they call doing nothing time, where you've got nothing to do. There's no kids, there's no jobs, there's no nothing. You've just got half an hour of which you can sit there and do absolutely fuck all. And
I hated that.
And Shovel called me because we chat on WhatsApp every now and then. Anyway, we have done for years. Not a lot, sort of like 2 or 3 times a year, whatever, blah blah blah. And yeah, he gave me a call during his fuck all time, which I really appreciated. He said, "I'm sitting here staring at a wall, and that's all I've got to do for a whole 30 minutes." He said, "So you got 20 of them."
Good. Right. I've only got this list up to podcast 399. I've not updated it in a while. Well, this is podcast 503. So if I miss you out, then never mind. So, Chris, Jeff Arsenal, John Welsh, Josh, Karl, Ellis, Femi, Richard, Nick, and James. They're the list of current ones. Gimli and Jason and Raj. And then there's you, and then there's Mr. Fife, and then this is all in order of who's done the most number of shows. Dom, FK, and then Kate didn't really do a damn fucking thing. Mr. Hullenfriend, Holler to his mates. There's Drew, Tim Payton, Shredder, Mark King, Tom Canton, who has gone on to do wonderful things in podcasting, and everybody should go and watch his podcast because he has made it, and it is wonderful when I see what he's done. Magic Mike, who's done nothing. LeGrove, Arsblog has been on 5 times. Jimmy Slate, Deek, Nightack John, the Frenchman, Akib, God knows what's happened to him. Tim Barg, who I still talk to on Twitter every now and then. Neil, Chimp Laguna, Devon, Lana, she's been on a few times. Corey, our Canadian friend. Craig from the same old Arsenal, or not anymore, he doesn't own it. Mr. Cowan. Guna in Denver, which was Andy, he doesn't have that anymore. Lee Judges, Pete Laguna, Thomas Munt, Jake Arsenal, Ryan Corasi, Ryan Hennick, John, Miami John, 3 times he's been on. Andrew Herman Havoje, my Croatian friend. Jonas, Sim from the Goonosphere Pod, Bex, Aaron Savage, Ray, Eva, Little Will, Highbury Harold. Wow, great days. Our mate Stefan, he's been on a few times. Matt Holmes, Alonso, everybody knows Alonso. Petito in New York. Mark Andrews from the Arsenal history. Stan the Man. It only says he's been on twice. He's been on a shitload more times than that. This doesn't include ABW live post-game shows. Paul, Poznan in my pants. Dan. Chanel Weeb, Jordan Weeb. Oh yeah, I think they brought out a book. A couple of Americans. Guzman Jones, Mikey B, Simon. Oh, there's that fucking fly. It's landed on my mirror. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to spray it with fly spray. Stay still, you fuck. This is podcasting first. Have that, you slag. One in the fucking house, and that'll be in my bedroom, shitting on my face if I don't kill it. Right, where were we? Simon Shakeshaft and James Elkin, they did the Arsenal shirts. Tel, Mo, George, Sardia, Paul, Swain, Tim Stillman, Phil Wall, Angry Event 5, podcast number 25. Fevzi, Andy Kelly, the other history man, Will. That's twice Little Will's been on there. Because people change their ats. Ian, Jules, JP Thompson, Joe Curran, Bryce Larson, Finn, Jack Carey, Matt Collins. Most of these people have only done one. Dean, Oliver Price-Bates, David O'Leary from the BSM, Samuel, Michael from You Are My Arsenal, who stopped doing it now, Andy the Yorkshire Gunner, Gary Prince, Reg, Nisef, Black Scarf Movement, Colin. I think he was the Englishman living in Japan teaching English, and we had him on when we had the tour, when Arsenal went to Japan. We had him on about 3 o'clock in the morning. Will Barker, Adam Ullman, Colin, much Arsenal, don't know where he is now. Charlie Cedric, Nate, Darren Berry. We all know Darren Berry. Great Arsenal author. Rodri Jones, Ashley, Tyrone, Ryan, Gentle German Gooner. Isa, Stefan Sinclair, Akshay, Liam Edwards, Alfie Scully, Kieran, which is Swiss Ramble. He doesn't do podcasts anymore.
Oh, he's a nice brother.
He is very good. Samir, Ola. Oh, Ola. I haven't seen much of Ola lately. Black Scorpion. Froguna, Nilo, Mr. Evans, Ahmed, Arcade Gunner, Footballing Hero, Lucas Premium. Now that is, he now does a podcast, The Bruised Banana FC. Does it with Drew. Mikola, Jaro, Clive from the the one he does with Paul and Clive and Clive.
I don't know.
Clive PAFC. What's the Arsenal Vision? For fuck's sake. George Bird. That didn't go very well.
He does all the youth stuff.
He does all the youth stuff, and he kept tapping a pen all the way through. And I said, "You'd stop tapping a pen," but he was very nervous. KP Large, Jeffrey O'Hara, Pop Debucci, Jimmy R, Kay Labek, David Lee, AJ Gunners, Kyle, Alan Alga. He was good. I like him. He annoys people. Max Hollifriend, which is Holler's son. Matt Sanassi is Australian. Briggsy, Stuart, Chris, Ryan, Mark. It's Mark. I think he's still on Twitter. Chris Dynamite, the wrestler. Dro, the Gooner, is an American, and he was working in the medical industry. Had his own channel for a little while. Andrew from Dial Square, still doing stuff. Jake Core, Dan, J. Gunnerpunner. We've had him on a couple of times. The French Gooner, very, very good. Mike Hertz, never heard of him. Fergus from and Chris from Fergus from Guns and Ribbons, and Chris from Suburban Gooner. Then authors, we've had Mr. Collins. We've had to move him from normal to journalist and authors. Sophie, Super Diva. Chaz, don't talk about him. Rafi Honigstein, 3.5 times. Jeremy Smith, French football. John Cross, twice. Amy Lawrence, she's brilliant. Jeremy Wilson, Alex Flynn wrote the book. See, new Venga. Dave Seeger, wonderful man.
Love Dave.
Me, Jan Arga Fjortoft, and he still follows me. Fuck knows why. Martin Lipton, Glenn Ogaza, who was rubbish. Nice bloke, but was just making noises all the way through, and I couldn't tell him, will you stop making noises? Rich Allen, Harry Seymour. He says he's only been on once. That's nonsense. Harry's been on loads of times. Matt Spiro, and managers. Do you remember the one manager we've had on, a proper manager?
Was I on that show?
No. Well, I don't know. Number 70. Managed Aston Villa and Derby.
No, go on.
John Gregory.
No, I went on that show.
And non-Arsenal fans, Paul, who the Crystal Palace fan, Amanda Jacks from the FSF.
Yeah, she's not. Yeah, she was a solicitor for the Football Supporters Association. She moved on to a new job with somebody else about I think the end of last season. But yeah, no, I've unfortunately had to speak to her a few times over the years.
Oh dear. David Thompson is a Coventry fan. He came on when we were talking about how much trouble Coventry are in and just general state of lower league football. Martin Smith, a Stoke fan. I've got no idea why we had a Stoke fan on there. From Oatcakes SCFC. Dean, an Everton fan, mate of mine. I've known him for all of his life. King Flipper, an Aston Villa fan. He is a Twitch user. Chris got him. And also James, a Chelsea fan. Cripsy, CRIPSYAU on Twitter. And he does FIFA. Both King Flipper and Cripsy both do FIFA stuff. And then you can add to that Mr. Waffles, a friend of mine. He's been on. And then who else was? That's David, Mr. Waffles. Come on, who else? There was that girl whose name I always Fran. I always get her name mixed up. And there's probably going to be a whole load of other people as well.
Your daughter has been on a few times.
She has indeed. And my mum's been in the background many a time. I think Colin the Spider Catcher's been in there. He passed away a few years ago and lived from next door. And Sean's mum has been wobbling around in the background. And who else would there be? Sexy Frank. He's been wobbling around in the background as well. And so there you go. That's it. So thank you very much to everybody who's been on. If I have missed your name off, I'm very sorry. Let me know and I shall add you to this. But I will go and update that. And if anybody wants to know what show any of those people were on, you just go to our website, bergkampwonderland.co.uk, go to index, and it will say their name. And in brackets, it will say, or underneath, it will say the show number that they are on. Right. It's been 2 hours and 43 minutes of your time wasted. And we will see you later. Oh, Phil Macker says, don't forget the cats. Yeah. Get the cats. Right, Gav, thank you very much, and I will speak to you all later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Right, where's the end thing? Oh, look, one of our listeners made this as well. What a wonderful picture.
Oh, lovely.
Or that one. Right, this is the intro with Steve and Dave. What better way to end the show? And we will see you later.
As soon as I scored that goal, I was fucking livid. Get down, dog. Splendid business.
He nearly caught the bloody thing. What are you talking about?
So I was just eating a full quiche. Well, you don't often see them at Ibs, so when you see them in the supermarket, they need to be swagged, microwaved immediately, and get the brown sauce on and bosh, Bob's your uncle.
Never in doubt.